What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 251, your weekly show covering the biggest topics in gaming with industry, legal, and technical insight. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, and we are getting off to a little bit of a late start today because, quite frankly, we don't know where Travis is.
Yeah,
So,
I think
Be anywhere.
Maybe it was this Fast X trivia, where he rented out the.
he ran out the theater last week. I did talk to him about it.
That might have been last night. Maybe he's got family hangover. So could be.
He's rethinking his life choices. Who knows?
Maybe the trivia broke him. We don't know.
But regardless, we are back to our regularly scheduled programming after our trivia episode last week. We had some fun with. We've got a lot to talk about this week, of course, mostly PlayStation related because of their showcase, some of the news they have, hardware, Bungie's news, The Last of Us. I mean, there's a lot going on in the house of PlayStation that we're going to get to. We may have we'll see if Travis shows up, but we may have a surprise guest as well join us for a segment here in a little bit. Before we get to any of that, though, I do want to shout out. Last week we did no super chats for our 250th, and we asked anyone who was feeling generous to donate to My Extra Life campaign, which helps Children's Miracle Network for kids here in Kansas City. Got some very generous donations. I want to thank anyone who donated and took time to do that. It's super generous as always. The community is amazing, and just a big thank you. Particularly, I want to call out a gentleman named Michael. I have no idea who that is, but ultra generous with their donation. So thank you very much for that. It is sincerely appreciated. And those hospitals, and some of those hospitals are like 10-15 minutes from Dan and I, and they do absolutely tremendous work with children around here who are very in need of it. So it's goes a long way. So thank you.
Yep.
Anyway, guys, Hoeg, how we doing this morning, man? We had a return yesterday of Lawyers and Dragons. A lot of people showed up. Looked like it was a good time.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. So yeah, we did a stream yesterday, 2 hours, and this will be kind of my normal weekend schedule, I think, for the foreseeable future of a Lawyers and Dragons on Saturday and a Bitcast on Sunday. So we're not restoring all the videos that I was doing before last December, but we are going to do these. And I think Lawyers and Dragons got off to a really strong start. We've got some new improvements and new additions to season 2, a lot of visual elements and a lot of different ways that we're interacting with both each other and ultimately the audience. I know we didn't do that much yesterday, but Lawyers and Dragons is fantastic. If you're interested in watching lawyers stumble through the rules for Dungeons and Dragons in an awesome campaign done by a professional game master who is just great, come check out Lawyers and Dragons on the HoegLaw YouTube channel, Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern.
There you go. Shout out to Dave as well. Yeah, I mean that it takes a lot of effort and time to put in to do what he does. So yeah, shout out to him. Dan, how you doing, brother? Got the Super Mario Brothers shirt today.
Yeah, I thought it
Mario
was
looking
for the PlayStation show that we're about to do. So this was next in line. That's what's going on.
There you go.
Shirt though. What's the brand? Is it a Smash Brothers? Is it?
It's just kind of everybody. I think it's a generic T Fury, something my kids got me for Christmas kind of.
I was going to say, are you wearing a copyright infringement right now?
100%.
Yeah, Nintendo has already taken this down.
Yeah, we may get strike again. So we're in trouble. I should just blur this out here.
I've seen some funny things lately. I mean, Nintendo's always taken stuff down, but I mean, there's a couple instances I saw from content creators I know who were 30-minute videos with 8 seconds of Mario footage gone. Taken down. It's nuts what they do. Anyway, good to see you. I like how Mario and Luigi especially are very happy, and Wario and Waluigi are just look menacing as hell, which is hilarious to me.
Right? Yeah, that's how it's supposed to
be. People are asking where's Travis. Like I said right at the top, we don't know. He's supposed to be here. He's not here. Hopefully he's okay.
That tweet that was mentioned is an automated tweet that automatically goes out showing the show that Travis.
Yes, it does.
That's why that popped up. That is not him.
No, that's not him tweeting about it.
No.
Let's go ahead and talk about what we've been playing, boys. I can't talk about it, but really the vast majority of my time has been spent on Diablo. I was able to announce, funny enough, if you watch us here, Travis is doing the Diablo 4 review for IGN. I'm doing the review for Season Gaming. We actually played together this week in co-op, which was awesome. Got footage of it and everything, which I think will show up in my review, so you get to see him running around with me. But that's all we can say, is that reviews come out at 9 a.m. Pacific on Tuesday. And you'll see a lot of content leading up to launch, early access launch, I think, which is Thursday evening. But that's all I can say at this time. So just stay tuned for that. But really, all of my time between playing and now creating content and writing the review and everything else, that's where it's been spent. So I don't have a whole lot to talk about in terms of what I've been playing. But I did want to ask you, Hoeg, are you still moving along through Tears of the Kingdom? And how's that going?
I am still moving through Tears of the Kingdom. I was actually just playing that before today's show. So Zelda's enormous. And one of the best parts about that game is that basically whenever you want to drop in and play for an hour, you usually have a good time. But it's enormously distracting. You're going to go running after various shiny things across Hyrule. So I don't feel like I'm moving forward at any particularly good pace. I'm like one story quest complete in, but I was just running around doing geoglyphs this morning, and that's a good time. It's fruitful. You get story elements out of it. You enjoy yourself, but I don't know that I'm moving the ball down the field very fast.
Yeah, that was me right at the start. It's like, okay, you need to go to the shrine. And I was like, what's over there? But I love that. That's my favorite thing to do in big open world games like that. And so far, again, I'm very early and I didn't play this week for obvious reasons. But so far it feels more, which you guys told me, feels like there's more to discover piece by piece or section by section than there was Breath of the Wild. I've always criticized Breath of the Wild for feeling a little empty to me at times, whereas this so far has felt much more, it feels that kind of fills that dopamine hit for me of like, oh, there's something shiny over there.
Yeah, and I think it's constantly rewarding your curiosity and going and checking these things out. And I felt that way about Breath of the Wild when I played it. I know you didn't, but this definitely feels more chock full than Breath of the Wild did. So I'm really enjoying it. Although I played that this morning, the rest of my time this weekend has been spent playing Gollum. As you know, I believe I DM'd you at some point on Friday and said, screw it, I'm buying Gollum.
Yep.
I'm always interested in hugely divisive things and perhaps more negative than divisive on Gollum coming out in terms of the reviews. But a lot of the stuff there talks about things that I found interesting, which is, well, some of the story and character beats are interesting, but the platforming sucks, which is, if you don't know Daedalic Entertainment, who made this game, they're primarily known as an adventure game maker. They make those modern versions of those 2D adventure games where you get an inventory and you combine items and you go through rooms and things like that. And I've been playing a ton of their adventure game stuff, and Gollum always seemed like a step past where they might otherwise be comfortable in terms of doing stealth and platforming as well as the story beats. But I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, and I was curious about what this game is. And I think one of the things, and I think one of the reasons why it was a joke for us, the Gollum game as a notion, is that Gollum is this, minor character in the Lord of the Rings with no heroic attributes, and it isn't immediately obvious what game direction you could take where that would be interesting, right? You're going to be in Mordor, you're kind of weird dude that doesn't have many athletic attributes, and I think I was very interested in, how do you make a game out of this? Right. I think some of the things that come across in the reviews is that, well, they didn't really make something fun out of this. You're stuck in Mordor. You're in a prison for long periods of time. You're doing prison tasks, which is very thematic. And I think that probably works better in an adventure game setting than it does in a setting where you actually have to move through 3D space. But in general, I think some of the stuff that comes across is, I don't really want to be in a prison in Mordor. That's not where I want to hang out. And that's true. But I'm always a guy that looks at things and says thematics are okay. Right? I don't want to be in the Last of Us world. I don't want to be in a number of these things. I don't view fun as the sole defining characteristic of an enjoyable video game experience. And so I wouldn't characterize my time with Gollum so far as fun, but I do think that they have captured certain amounts of the thematics around being stuck in the slave pits of Barad-dûr or whatever. And so I'm a little bit more lenient than some as to what this game is. I don't think they quite cracked the code as to how to make this an enjoyable experience, but I don't find it to be the worst game ever made or some of the things you might otherwise see on the internet.
Okay. All right. How much time do you think you have into it?
5 minutes.
No, maybe 10.
10 minutes?
10 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it obviously kind of took over a piece of the conversation this week, and we try to remind people here, and I do appreciate that you bought it and playing it and speaking to it from actual experience rather than just kind of the social media dog pile we typically see, right? And when a game releases that doesn't meet expectations. But I always am very curious around what happened, right? Because obviously we talk all the time, and Travis and I have talked about this because we talk to developers directly, and it's like they play their games. They know how their game performs. They know what the expectations were for the game, how it stands up to those. And there's obviously people in the studio there that probably poured a lot of time and effort into this game. And
I think there's a lot of artistic and other skills being put at this game. It's one of the reasons I was interested in it is for your question, which is just like a big budget movie. At some point, people had to sign off on this. People had to decide to fund it.
Yep.
And you can see that in Gollum. There's some really interesting stuff they do with the musical scores. There's some interesting stuff they do with the narration and like dealing with Gollum and Smeagol at the same time. But yeah, I think one of the things that I was thinking about while I was playing this the other day is that I do think that there's a push in reviewers and modern video game views to really go and say this is fun or this isn't fun. And I think Gollum isn't quote unquote fun, and it isn't trying to be. And I don't think that's acceptable to a certain cache of reviewers. Like it's not trying to be enjoyable toys to play with the whole time. It's trying to tell a story and use interactivity as a part of telling that story. And I don't know that it fully works, but I don't think that we can just say, well, this isn't shooting people in a corridor or something that I find to have a dopamine rush when I do it, so it's therefore bad. And I do want to have game developers try to do things that are more interesting than just where is the fun live and what is the gotcha and loot box combination that gives people the biggest psychological rush. I think that that's part of this story as well. And I think Gollum is something that I like to support because it's trying to do different things.
I think that's very fair. I think, to your point, I don't think the video game medium as a medium should be limited to a certain scope of experiences that are offered by developers. Now, whether or not that's enjoyable to some, that doesn't really matter, right? The video game industry is big enough, and there's enough games out there to support all kinds of approaches. So I feel that. Interesting. I wonder, you've got me a little curious about it. I certainly don't have time to play it, especially with Diablo officially releasing. But it might be one of those, I look back on it and just give it a shot out of pure curiosity, because I think Travis said he was going to do the same.
Yeah,
he said he needed to know. Yeah. So, by the way, Travis pinged me just now and said, yep, alarm didn't go off. I'll be late. So he should be coming here at some point.
let's talk about all the live service stuff right now then.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just finished that, buddy.
How disappointing was that showcase, everybody?
So Dan, you haven't been playing Gollum. You said that I think you caved and picked up Tears of the Kingdom last week.
I have not.
Have you been playing it?
No, I played like 2 hours still. I haven't played it at all this week. For two reasons. One,
I swear if you say Hitman,
no.
I swear.
But yes, literally Hitman is right now on my TV upstairs. But nevertheless,
you're going to have a comeback, Dan, when Ains gets completely sucked into Diablo for like a year and a half.
See, that's the thing.
This is true.
That's coming out in a week. So that's a problem. I know I won't be able to finish Tears of the Kingdom in that amount of time. There's
a lot of content in there.
There's a lot. I can tell just playing, from what I have, and I want to give it a fair shake. So I'm not going, because I'm going to be playing Diablo 2 as well, and I love Zelda. I love Breath of the Wild, but I'm just kind of pacing myself. I played some Midnight Suns. The new Storm DLC came out, a week or two so ago, and that game it's the game that keeps on giving. I mean,
Midnight Suns is excellent. It was my game of the year last year.
I think it would have been mine too. If I had played it last year when I should have, or whenever I got
I
it.
see
But
more and more people like jumping into it now and saying, "Wow, this game's
it's so
amazing."
good. It's so good. I mean,
The
the
Lord
best
Cognito
part,
Initiative.
yeah,
Right.
you can. It's every single character is viable in their own way in almost every situation. It's just they did a really good job, and it's really well balanced from that character perspective. The cards work. There might be like one or two of them that I'm just like, I really don't use them too much, but I'm pretty much interchangeable at this point. The deck building, thought I hate it, actually love it. It's stuff that doesn't really make sense in my mind, and the story's all right. It's good. It's fine.
There's a lot going on
along. Yeah, it's and each individual's little side quest stuff. The DLC especially was really good. I would have thought Morbius would have been good, but it was probably my favorite one so far. And
this is where Travis tells you that you're liking a dating game.
Yep.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can get through this comment before he arrives. You're good.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
Damn
close.
He's popping in.
No.
No, he heard you. He heard you say you like Midnight Suns.
Yeah.
That was it.
Did someone say Midnight Suns?
We did. We went straight from Gollum to Midnight Suns.
Oh, I missed Gollum. No. No.
We can go back for Gollum if you've been playing it. I really want to.
It is a pity because you did. I did say some things about Gollum and how I felt that game reviewers were a touch too focused on what is fun versus not fun, and constrain certain aspects of
fun?
Development.
Isn't that the whole point of video games?
No.
It sounds like a pretty big.
And here we thought we were past this conversation.
Wait, no. Let's go back because I have a bone to pick with this one.
Did you get some good sleep, sir? Are you feeling refreshed?
Yeah.
I'll admit I did go to bed late, but I always go to bed late and wake up early, and my alarm just didn't go off. Look at this. 7:30. Bitcast on Sundays. It says it right there. It's on. I don't understand it. Technology has defied me, but yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
It happens, Travis.
I woke up literally 6 minutes ago, so I am here as quickly as I possibly could have. I got out of my suit pajamas and into my regular day suit, and now I'm here. So
your suit pajamas.
So was your Fast X showing last night? Your big trivia thing, was that last week?
Last week.
It was last week. Yeah, it was.
I thought maybe you were.
I couldn't.
I was hoping not to bring that up, Dan. So thank you. Damn it.
I couldn't talk about it because I was doing the 250 trivia for you guys last week. But it was what a treat. It was wonderful, guys. It was. Oh yeah, here. What's that?
What? I mean, I feel like in meme format, it's find anything in your life that makes you feel like Travis feels about Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, it's my hit.
The popcorn. That's cool.
Bucket.
I'll give you that. That's cool.
Sweet. It's pretty sweet. Anyway. It was awesome, dude. So we had we rented out the theater. Everybody was there. It was lousy with like IGN folks. It was just all my buddies, and everybody came in the right mood. We had a happy hour beforehand, so everybody was drinking and chilling. And then it was Alamo Draft House, so they like bring food and drinks to your seat at the theater.
Yeah.
And then everybody was a touch drunk. I did the trivia. The trivia was super funny because it just revealed that nobody knows anything about these movies that they watch all the time, and except for me because I'm a psychopath. And then we rolled the movie, and everybody was just yelling at the screen and laughing their butts off, and it was a damn good time. We went out for drinks afterward. It was chill.
Good stuff.
It's good,
great, man. And I got a popcorn bucket that looks like a Dodge Charger RT from the 1970s. It's great.
So we were talking about currently playing, and Hoeg gave us a rundown of about 10 hours of his gameplay of Gollum. And he was pointing out, no, not a great game per se, but the argument he was making is that, Hoeg, you can probably articulate this better than me, but that there should be game experiences where just fun and the dopamine hit should not be the only thing you're focused on all the time. And that it feels like Gollum is that type of game where it's like artistically they went for something that is not necessarily fun, but he sees some merit in it.
I don't think you want to hang out in a prison in Mordor. I don't think that's an enjoyable experience. And I think that they have captured at least some of what that would probably be like, which is a certain amount of compelling and interactive and the things that video games can do to put you into that space and in that mindset. But it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. to play through those parts. So I think there's a big kind of push against, well, this isn't entertaining me right this second. This isn't fun right this second in video games. And I would have it go into a direction that would allow developers to do more things that are exploring things that aren't just playing on the playground all the time.
I'm very confused.
Did you play Gollum? You said you joked that you were going to pick it up.
I didn't.
Oh.
I didn't have time,
Oh,
guys. I'm doing other stuff. Yeah,
I was explaining that Diablo content is taking a lot of time and effort. So I did explain that already.
Yeah. I get where you're saying, Hoeg, but I think the problem with it is that people are okay with playing games that are, quote, not fun experiences, but that is fun. You know what I mean? Like, The Last of Us isn't like a super, like, oh, I'm having a hell of a time, haha, hee hee. But it is fun to live in that world.
Shooting people is always a certain amount of psychological.
Yeah, but there's examples where you don't shoot people. Like, what's the one you like? Immortality. You don't shoot people in that. And it's also not really a world that's fun to live in because it's kind of creepy and there's lots of people having orgies on conference tables.
Yes, but that's a game that I like. That's a game that other people hate.
I like that game. I get why you would like it though, and so do other people. It reviewed pretty well. It's not like everybody gave it a 4 out of 10. But like the problem with Gollum is, from what I can tell, again, I have not played it. I will give you that, Hoeg. I need to play it at some point. You know, it seems like the stealth mechanics are bad, which like that's kind of what they hung their hat on as a game mechanic.
I'm willing to grant that the platforming and stealth is, generally speaking, not great and beyond what Daedalic does as a company in general. Yeah. I granted that at the start. I know you weren't on, Travis.
Okay.
But I think one of the things that people react to even more than that is, you know, who wants to be Gollum? And this isn't interesting to be in, you know, a Mordor prison for the game. And it's like, yeah, I get that. Except that I think you can use the interactive media. You can use video games to do interesting things with putting your brain in a space where it isn't if it's just passively being consumed by you in a movie or television setting. And I would have us be allowed to use that space. And I think in the reviews that I read, the ones that were overly negative dismissed what the game does well, which is some interesting writing and some interesting thoughts on, you know, what it is like to be Gollum in Mordor at this time.
Okay. I don't have any problem with that. Your Honor, that seems pretty fair.
That's where we landed about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I guess my I balk at the idea that being in a prison in Mordor can't be fun. I feel like that sounds to me like the most fun thing possible is being in a fantasy world doing fantasy crazy stuff, right? That's like that's cool. I do agree that the premise seems incredibly flawed. I mean, let's face it. When this game was announced, every single person who has ever played a video game went,
"Yeah, that's where the joke came from."
Don't want to do that. That sounds bad. And I'm amazed it got as far as it did.
Yeah, well, I have not found it to be the worst thing I've ever played in the world, and I think there's a lot of artistic talent being used on it that I can tell just playing the game, and so I am more inclined to say this is an interesting artifact of time than others are.
I am 100% with you on it is not the worst game ever, and I can tell you that just without even having played it. I've played the worst games, and to me it reads like a really low 4 or maybe even a 3. I probably would do that, but you know, bad/awful. I've played unbearables, right? I don't think Gollum is at that level, so. Yeah. Anyway, carry on. I'm sorry we had to backtrack a little bit on my account. I'm sorry for being late.
I wanted to talk about Gollum anyway.
Yeah. No, we're good. We're good.
I looked at your eyes and I said, "This guy, he wants to talk about Gollum. I need to. How can I help him get this off of his chest?"
No, there's something in me that, in terms of the sequence of events when a game releases, that gets me really intrigued. It is this kind of like really strong response. And then reading through the reviews, as I did before I pulled the trigger to buy Gollum, to see what people like and what people didn't like, everybody basically agreed that the platforming and the stealth was not very strong for a game in 2023. And I don't disagree with that at all. But where I was really intrigued were the articles that talked about the narration and the story and the things that I would expect Daedalic to be okay at, that the writing is interesting, that it's trying to do interesting things. And maybe it doesn't fully succeed. Not every bit of a Daedalic game does, but even when the project was announced, when you saw that they were doing a quote-unquote real game instead of just an adventure game, there is the question of, can that company do that? And the answer is no. But when you play this game, if you think of it as an adventure game, you're like, I see exactly how this company made this. Because this notion of, we're going to now do this thing in this mines, in these slave pits, it's like, all right, you're trying to give me a feeling of how hopeless I am and how long this process is taking, which is fine in an adventure game setting, or it's more accepted in that setting. And now that you're in like the real 3D gaming, people are reacting to like, this is horrible. I'm not having fun. And so that's one of the things I wanted to bring up, because it does feel, you can see the adventure game roots in it, except it's just been replaced from inventory management to actually doing the thing. And not
I told him it might be a fun game to check out in the future for sure when there's time, if there's ever time at this point.
I definitely plan on buying it, like with that, or getting a code or whatever. I'm gonna make some time to do it for sure.
Yeah, I don't think if you want to buy it, it'll take too long for it to drop in price. So it should be cheap.
You say that, but then there's certain games that I've wish listed and been like, oh, this is like a hot mess. I'm for sure gonna get it on sale, and then it just doesn't. I'm really surprised. I think you're probably right about this one though.
A year from now, it'll be on a year from now, it'll be on Games with Gold. That's what.
Bro, I'm not waiting a year. I'm not waiting a year. The people expect more from me, Dan.
2 weeks.
Game Pass.
No.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It may get swept under the rug. We don't know.
Yeah.
Let's jump over to some super chats, and then we're gonna have a surprise guest joining us for the next piece of the conversation. So, Dan, you ready to go?
Always. Never actually. Googleman, before we even started with the €5, watched Renfield, a movie about abusive work relationships. Very little video game subject matter, but there's a reference to Mortal Kombat X-Rays. Is that one? Taki's Fuego. All right, man. I mean, I think you can do better than Taki's Fuego, but that's fine.
Man, I've seen a lot of references to Takis, and I've never had a Takis in my life.
Okay, so I have had a Takis, and at least the de facto brand that you see, like the Doritos of that snack is horrible.
It's
just bad. It is so bad. It's like eating a piece of chalk. It's really terrible.
And they're perpetually stale.
Somebody that I told this, I told that Takis were horrible. She was like, "Oh, you've just been eating those Safeway brand, the layman Takis," and she hooked me up with some Trader Joe's Taki, and I was like, all right, that's damn good. That's pretty good. So don't let Takis Taki you down into Taki you out of eating that snack, because there's good iterations of it out there.
Yeah, we've gone too far. What's next?
Google, thank you for the super chat. I like that we've gotten in the habit of having a pre-Bitcast super chat from Googleman every week. Rayman in the house.
Yes, with the 220 Canadian. That's why I don't sense the presence of evil.
That was before. That was in reference to Travis not being here, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay. I take it.
Yeah.
I accept that.
It's on me.
Look, I just woke up. That hurt a little. I haven't put on my armor fully yet, but I take it.
Just woke up and I got internet slammed.
Yeah, I'm not even out of bed yet, and somebody's making fun of me on the internet. I guess another day at IGN. Welcome. Yeah.
Siddharth.
Yeah. What did we say these were? The rupees? Rupees.
Yes.
Yeah. Indian rupees or something. Thoughts on the PS multiplayer showcase?
We're getting there.
Yeah. It feels like it didn't land, except Marathon and probably Helldivers. Everything there looks like dead on arrival. So.
Okay. I don't know if I was that sharp on it.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
I'm assuming that is not intended to include Spider-Man.
Yeah. I hope not.
Yeah. I think everyone knows Spider-Man's a given. Yeah. We're getting there, Siddharth. That's our very next topic, and we've got a lot to talk about there. So we will let you know shortly. Thank you for the super chat. And then we got an Australian super chat from the Book of Dark, and it just says your amount message will be public, which means they didn't overwrite the actual message. So Book of Dark, I don't know if that was intentional or I doubt.
Intentional.
That's
okay.
kind of hilarious.
Yeah, I don't think if you send it, it'll show anything unless you type it. So
honestly, that phrase alone sounds like a ransom, like it's a threat of some kind. Your mounted message will be coming.
Thank you for the super chat, and then a big shout out, Vintage Willow, gifting 10 memberships on both channels. Super generous. She's done that several times, so thank you very much for that. And shout out to Midnight Jury as well. Another membership donation, which is becoming like a weekly occurrence with you guys, which is, like I said, amazing. So thank you. All right. So we have a random guest popping in behind the studio here who I think, especially on the Hoeg side of the house, these people may know who he is. Ian, good morning, sir.
Gimlet Otter Feet.
Morning. How is everyone doing?
Oh, we're doing well.
Doing great. Travis is a little tired, but we're doing good overall.
He's right.
I'm in anticipation of why Ian's here. I think I know why Ian's here, and I think he's going to be agreeing with Hoeg on a topic, and I'm going to have to bitch slap both of these old sons. I just, it's gonna be really fun. So
Ian and I just don't like the giant corpse.
it was just save it. Okay, we're not there yet, Hoeg.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I know your point already because it was made in 1948 by someone who looked just like you, and I'm ready to combat it. Okay.
Your identity politics notwithstanding, Travis. I'm sure that we can have
woke
a
up
good
fiery today.
I did.
Question in the chat, Ian. Have you played Gollum?
I have not. I have seen the screenshots, which looked like hot garbage, but I will have to give it a try. From what I hear, it'll probably be like, wait for it to be on Game Pass or whatever and give that a try.
Yep. Yeah. All right, let's jump over to the PlayStation Showcase, obviously, then. So Ian, we pinged each other yesterday because he said he has some thoughts on Marathon returning. So we will certainly get there here in a moment. But give me, guys, PlayStation Showcase. This was the first showcase, and I know way too much detail about specific numbers here, but first showcase from PlayStation in 620 days. So nearly, the best portion of 2 years. People had very high expectations for good reasons, right? It was kicking off the summer showcase kind of season, if you will. PlayStation hadn't shown anything in a while. A lot of expectations on what the rest of their first party's been working on. We keep hearing about how well they're doing financially, but they haven't shown anything outside of Spider-Man, of course. So expectations were pretty high coming into this. They showed 32 games. Only 5 of those 32 were first party, and only 1 of those showed gameplay, which of course was Spider-Man. Which I think it's pretty fair to say the sentiment after the PlayStation Showcase, was a letdown. Most people, at least anecdotally, right across social media that I saw in some of the conversations, podcasts, etc. I've seen, some have said it was not a bad show. It wasn't a good first party showcase. Others have said just the show in general didn't really interest them. I'm somewhere in the middle. I thought it was okay. I certainly expected more after all this time from PlayStation, but it was okay. I would give it a 5 or 6 if I were giving it on a scale. But what do you guys think? Where'd you land after watching this show?
Well, I was excited for it because of the time period. And I do think whenever we're grading things like this, expectation is such a huge portion of the formula.
For sure.
So I think that they didn't show what I was interested in, which is what in the world does the future of Sony look like after fall 2023? And we don't have any better notion of that, I don't think, other than Square is putting foam everywhere. And there's some other games that are probably going to be good third-party games, and that Microsoft was quick to say is coming to the Xbox as well. That's great, but that's not much of a showcase for people that want to be enthused about their particular brand of plastic box under their TV. And so I think that's where the disappointment comes from, because the actual content in there, if you're looking at it like a YouTube compilation of trailers for video games, has a lot of good stuff. I mean, my October is looking, like your June, Ains, in terms of Diablo and Final Fantasy and other things that people are looking forward to.
Street Fighter. Yeah.
October now has Alan Wake 2, which is the
Yep.
sequel to one of my favorite games ever. And
I
we
didn't
may
know
or may
that.
not
I don't
have
think we've talked about that before.
Yeah,
That's
Alan
awesome.
Wake is one of my favorite games ever. I've loved Remedy for a long time, and I didn't like the direction they took Control. But Alan Wake
I actually agree with you.
was a good game.
I agree with you.
And so
Wow,
Alan
we've
Wake
actually
2,
got Travis nodding to that. So
Alan Wake's awesome.
I mean, I love
Are we
Alan
all
Wake.
in agreement
Well-
that Alan Wake is better than Control?
Alan Wake
Oh,
is an
no.
amazing game.
No.
I said, oh no.
I think it's an amazing game, but I think Control was built on it and was generally better.
Okay. All right.
I agree with
Alan
Travis.
Wake had a better story.
Yes,
Easily,
which is why you're probably playing a Remedy game, I would argue.
Well,
But-
that's
yes.
why you play Alan Wake, certainly, because you can't play it for gameplay reasons. But Control is significantly better in terms of gameplay, and it holds up as a story. It's it's less.
I
Concise.
disagree on it holds up as a story. I think every aspect of Control is undercooked, but that's okay. We're talking about Alan Wake 2.
Yeah. Okay. What else is October? What am I forgetting?
So there was an announcement right after the showcase, which didn't make a ton of sense to me, that Alone in the Dark is coming back in October.
Yes. Yeah.
On a
THQ
big
Nordic
budget level
little thing.
from the writer of Soma, which is one of my favorite horror games of all time.
Yep.
And with a Hollywood cast, which is often not the greatest thing, but it does at least indicate to me that resources are being put at the project. And that the actors that are included in the game in question, I like. It's I'm going to forget the name. It's Hopper from Stranger Things, and it's Jodie Comer. But I'm looking forward to those two games more than most of the things that were shown in the showcase. So Alan Wake 2 on its own is something that really makes a good inclusion in a presentation like this for me, but it's not terribly useful to just say it's Sony showcase or that I should be excited about my PlayStation 5 for that product.
Yeah, kind of like Assassin's Creed Mirage. I felt the same thing, right? It's going to be a big game. A lot of people
That's a
excited
good-looking
for it.
game. It's coming together
Yeah.
for them.
No doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be a big hit. And it's not that seeing it was bad by any stretch of the imagination. But again, you expect a couple of those things in a PlayStation showcase or a branded showcase. But I think most are in agreement that the disappointment was really about first party. You expected to see what PlayStation's first party and their growing first party was going to deliver in the next year to 2 years. Doesn't seem to be ready. I think there was a conversation from certain developers and certain team members just saying, look, if it was ready to show, they would have showed it. It's not ready to show. So here we are. What do you think, Dan? I know you really enjoy the PlayStation first party games, right?
Yep.
Those are the types of games, the single player adventure narrative games. That's your wheelhouse.
Pretty much.
You watched this showcase. Where were you on it?
I thought it sucked ass. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, I wasn't super happy with it. I mean, I understand. If you don't have the stuff to show, it's fine. All right? That's fine. You basically just cleared I mean, if I'm sitting here and I'm Xbox and Microsoft, I'm like, well, awesome. I don't have to show any of that crap that they just showed. I don't care about VR. I don't care about live service. And I don't care about multiplayer. So I'm sitting here. I actually took notes. Like, like whatever that hell play. Yeah, I'm sitting here, like fair game, don't care. Jim Ryan, don't care. Starship Anthem, Halo Troopers, nope, no thanks. I mean, I'm just sitting here like writing stuff like, well, this is, and what's with all
You
the
mean
cat
Helldivers 2, right?
Yeah, whatever
That's
that
what
was.
you mean,
That's what I saw. Yeah, and too many cat games. I don't need any more cat games.
Too many cat games?
There's too many. There was at least 2, maybe 3.
Cat,
So
Cat Quest is a good series.
listen, I don't need cat games. I don't need it.
This is what happens when you give Stray Game of the Year nominations. People
Yes.
think they need to make cat games.
Too many cat games.
Too many cat games.
What's funny is I know you didn't watch the Indie World showcase for Nintendo, Dan.
Absolutely
but
not.
that was like 7 cat games out of 30.
There you go. I mean,
He's not
more
lying.
stuff
It
that I
was.
don't need. I'm not sure what the obsession is with cats. That's fine if you
I
like.
agree
them.
with you there, but
yeah,
I don't
I'm a
know.
dog
I don't know
guy.
if that's a
you know.
reason to dislike a game. frankly.
Oh
I mean,
my gosh.
every time you see something, it felt like it was like, "Ooh, this looks really cool," and then it's like, "Oh, hey, it's multiplayer and co-op or live service," or I'm like, "Damn, man!" The last
Like
12
it, man.
minutes, yeah. Listen,
Would you be okay if this was a sequence of dog games?
yes,
Okay.
Yeah. I'm much more of a dog guy.
That's a weird line to draw.
I mean, I do it in real life, so I mean, total dog guy. Nevertheless, it was fine. I didn't like it very much. The last 12 minutes was awesome. It was all Spider-Man. I was hoping for
That was
maybe
a
couple
long
more.
Spider-Man
It was
segment.
a long one.
Yeah.
They had to
looked
try
I
to
thought they
make
showed
the
too
time
much.
Feel
I'm
worth
sorry,
the
I'm
time.
still stuck on the cat thing. Couldn't
No,
you
no,
just?
we got to move past the cat thing.
It's a four-legged creature covered in fur. You could just pretend it's a dog and enjoy the game on its own merit. You know what I mean?
No.
Like it's
I
like
played
basically the same thing.
I
They'll
played through
sell you
all
a
of Stray.
DLC that'll turn it into a dog
Yeah.
with a
Travis.
Yeah, just like
Cats and dogs
again,
are basically the same
No.
thing.
they
No,
are. They're just both feral
No,
creatures
they
that you
are
let live in your
not.
house.
Who
It's
said that?
crazy. What?
Hoeg? You said that they're the same.
It's the most controversial
said they're
thing
the
Travis
same.
has ever said.
Oh
He
my
was
God.
quoting me. Look, dogs
Oh.
and cats are both feral, four-legged creatures covered in fur that you let live in your house
What
for
is
no reason other than you think that they're cute. All right, they're the same thing. They scratch the same itch. You
Nope.
just think that one's weird snout is cuter than the other weird snout. I
Not
think
even
they're
close.
both
Travis,
ugly
have
as
you ever
sin.
been in the room with a cat or a dog?
I have. And let me tell you about cats and dogs. Another way they're similar. I'm allergic to both, and I don't like them. I don't like any pets. They're
No.
just not my thing, man.
Whole different
This does
temperament.
not surprise me
No.
at all.
Yeah.
Like, not even a little bit.
I
That
just
you're
can't
allergic to
fathom
both and
the
don't like
cats and
either of them.
dogs. They behave very differently.
Very
I know they
different.
behave differently, but they're still both wild animals that you're living with. They're the same. It's the same thing. To me, you guys are all weirdos.
Mm.
I don't know
It's
what
like,
you're
I
talking
just
about. I don't have a
hate
cat
joy.
or a dog. I have a
Yeah.
bearded dragon.
You have a what?
Do they bring you joy? Get it out of the house.
A bearded dragon.
You have a bearded dragon. I have also owned a bearded dragon. And yeah, it's another weird thing you could put in your house. I just don't get pets, guys. Animals, they don't agree with me.
All right, so we're on the
Especially
same page. Too many cat games. All right, that was the.
No,
There you go.
who cares? I don't care. You
I
know what I
do.
mean? Like, all
Listen.
right. Well,
Listen, what I was looking for was the big, first party narrative driven game, like you said. Hank. That's what I was wanting, and I understood that I would probably get. I knew I would get Spider-Man in some form or fashion, and then after that, I was like, everything else is going to be a surprise. I was looking for more reasons to maybe pick up like a PSVR 2. I was hoping for like a half like Alex, port. Which
I
probably
at
won't
least
happen.
expected something first party on PSVR 2,
Something.
which we didn't get either.
Yeah.
I think the weirdest thing to me is you talk about it being 620 days. Sony had really not shown much of anything for such a long time that you would think that they'd have dry powder. You'd think that they would be ready to go. That's why that hype built up.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
why announce the showcase at all for that? Right. That was primarily watching game trailers for an hour and a half, and then a Spider-Man 2 state of play that is short for that, but a
Pretty
long
much.
sequence for a showcase. And why decide now to show this stuff when you don't really have a future to show after Spider-Man?
Especially when it's looked at as the start of showcase season, right? So you have to know that, and I get that the showcase season applies to more of people like us that follow this stuff and talk about it every week than the general audience. I get that. But there are expectations that are set among your kind of hardcore community when you announce a PlayStation showcase at the end of May, week and a half before Summer Game Fest, 2 weeks before Xbox. There's expectations that are there from decades, right, of these types of conferences. And it's pretty clear that this wasn't on that level. So I agree with you there. Why not save this till September and do a state of play instead?
Yeah. I'd much rather have a long form state of play. I like those. I thought they did a good job with Ghost of Tsushima. I thought they did a good job with Hogwarts Legacy, which isn't even theirs. Those states of play were enjoyable videos. This, and I know I've talked about it before, I don't like the format of just trailer with not even an intro or narrator voice.
I agree.
I just don't like that. But when you say it's going to primarily be a third-party video dump, I wouldn't even have shown up.
Yeah. Travis, you in the same camp here? Let the cat thing go, brother. Move on.
Yeah, I'm arguing with people in the comments about pets now. That's what my time doing.
You made your bed on that one, man.
Yeah, you're on your own.
I'm not complaining. I think they're all wrong.
I'm gonna demod you just so it's more fun.
I'm not a mod.
Yes, you are. On my channel, you are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
I didn't know that, so clearly I haven't been using the powers in any special way. I didn't think the show was bad. I don't really care if games are first party. To me, a game is a game, and I have no stake in them being PlayStation games or whatever. So, if they show some good games, I'm inclined to be like, cool, I'll play that, and I don't really care which, if it's exclusive or not. I think that
sorry, Travis, just one point on that. I don't think it's that. I think big AAA games everyone's excited for, right? Regardless of who they come from. But I think the fact that Spider-Man, Alan Wake 2, and Assassin's Creed Mirage were all known quantities, right? There's no surprise there. We knew those games were coming, and we knew they were releasing this year.
Other games that were surprises
from a big AAA perspective.
Bungie.
Well, you're not stoked for Foam Star, Zanes?
Bungie announced a new game. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I mean
they're big, and they're also first party, by the way.
Yeah, that's the one we're going to talk about as being the soul. But I mean that's it.
I think that they showed some good games. Is my point, and I think people got really. They invalidated them line by line because they were on other platforms, and I was like, I don't care about that. Like, they showed some good games that makes it a good showcase.
I don't care that they're on other platforms. I care about what the hell your other developers are doing.
I mean, they're doing stuff that they're clearly not ready to show. So
I agree, but part of the disappointment there is, okay, well, we know how this process generally works, and maybe Sony's trying to shorten some of their announcement and marketing times, which would be great.
I would love that. Yeah.
But if they're not, we know how this process works. And the fact that we didn't get even, teaser logo trailers for some of the stuff today or at the showcase means that we're another sequence further away from those games actually coming into our homes than we might otherwise be.
Yeah.
I agree that they're not ready to show.
That is possible, but I think that you're discussing two separate things. One, you're discussing the state of Sony first party studios and what they might be working on, and the fact that you still don't know. And another one, you're talking about the games they showed at the showcase. And if you focus on the latter, I think you arrive at a different conclusion than if you focus on the former.
Well, I just wasn't very excited about most of the stuff that they showed.
Yeah. So, okay, then that's fine. My opinion was that like they showed a fine sampling of games. I will probably play most of those. Some of them look good. And I think really the only reason people got upset about it was because they were worried about, it's not my walled garden. It's not the reason I play on this walled garden specifically that's being showcased. And the fact that it was their first state of play since 2021.
Expectations go in.
It was 2 years. And I think that second complaint is completely valid. The fact that it's been 2 years, I could see how you could look at this sampling of games and go, well, for a 2 year wait, that wasn't very exciting. So I think the people that are being harsh on it, taking into account the time frame, I think that's fair. First party,
that's what we led into this conversation.
Yeah. I know. I didn't get to talk about that part, but I think that part is completely fair. I think the lack of first party options doesn't really bother me at all. These are all games you can play on PlayStation that you will probably be excited to play, or the average consumer would. So I don't have a problem with that, but I didn't expect Naughty Dog to tell us what they're working on yet, or God of War.
Apparently they're working on nothing. I mean, that's part of the stories we're going to get to.
Yes, yeah. I am very excited to talk about that because it involves Bungie and their effect on Sony culture. And
this is what we expected them to do. I mean, the funny thing about that news story, and we'll talk about it, is that this is exactly what Sony said they were going to do with Bungie, and this is what you would expect Bungie to be doing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we might as well just transition to it then. Let's talk about Bungie. Let's talk about Marathon, because that's why Ian wanted to join us to begin with.
Old IPs. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk. Let's start with
skin suits of old IPs. Using whatever marketing cache.
You're a skin suit of the IP of a human being.
I don't even understand that insult. I don't know how to respond to it.
You're a skin suit human. That's what I have to say to you.
No, but
Hey,
let's
so-
start out here because Marathon as a series was some of my favorite sci-fi in my youth. Like, I love Durandal. I think Infinity has a really cool concept. Marathon as a series had some of my favorite writing in video games. And when they announced that Marathon was coming back,
Which one?
well, Durandal was my favorite.
Of course it was.
Which is Marathon 2.
Do we need to preface, by the way? Sorry, Hoeg, do we need to
Yeah, let's
preface
do that.
what the history of Marathon and
I'll
Bungie
explain
and like
Marathon. I've played every Bungie game. I've prepared for this moment. All right, so Marathon was a series of video games. There were 3 of them that take place in a fictional science fiction universe. They had a gameplay that looked very similar to the 1990 Doom games, if you're familiar with those. They have kind of a 2D graphical interface in
Doom?
a 3D
What's
environment.
Doom?
Doom is pretty well known. I'm not going to explain it here. It's like a cat of the video games.
There you go. There you go.
And they were very unique. They had a lot of narrative for that type of game, and they were played exclusively, if I'm not mistaken, on the Macintosh I don't want to say PC, Macintosh computer, and that was
Marathon
one of the first...
2 was available for PC.
Very good. I played it on Mac, I believe, but I didn't own any PC that could play a game at the time, but there was a Mac in the library, and I played Marathon on it. I think I had to go around firewalls to install that.
Marathon was fantastic. Yeah, they would have terminals and things that you would pick up and get full snippets of almost novel-like writing,
which was basically unheard of at the time.
And they carried on with Halo too. They did that.
And
Halo is
the fantastic thing is
like a Marathon evolution.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is. Actually, a lot of the art, the concept art from Marathon made it into Halo, or the suits of armor, some of the...
And the AI rampancy concept comes straight from Marathon.
Yep.
And it's also connected to Pathways into Darkness, which predates that as well. It's sort of the Bungie... Marathon is really the crown jewels of the Bungie lore. It's where it all it's where it really got fleshed out, but they built on what they'd done before, and they established people are still picking apart the story in various ways.
And I think that Bungie plans on continuing that legacy based on what we saw. And I can talk about that too.
Do you?
Based on what you saw?
Oh, yes. Yes.
In the Vidoc?
In the Vidoc. There are very clear signs, and if you participate in the ARG, that they are going to turn this into their new platform for AR gaming, which Bungie is super good at, and they try to shoehorn into Destiny, and it hasn't really worked, and they've moved the team that have worked on those sorts of projects over to Marathon, and based on what the Vidoc says, it seems like that game is going to be 100% ARG craziness, and it's kind of obviously they're using the fact that they're really good at shooters to present it as, it's an extraction shooter. It's going to be fun time for you and your friends to giggle about, but there's going to be this element of like ongoing secrets that the community is unraveling together that's going to be connected in some way to the story that they're trying to tell, and I'm super excited for it. Yeah.
Well, I'm first of all glad that you're super excited for it. I mean, Bungie to me invented the modern our ARG, which is I Love Bees and Halo 2. The problem I always have with that is that I Love Bees was really interesting, and then Halo 2 didn't use that at all. Didn't expand on that. Didn't engage with that aspect of the storytelling that Bungie was using.
Yes.
If they improve on that, that's great, but it's a PvP extraction shooter. You went right by it in the sentence. Folks that were expecting a lore-based first-person shooter, which you might, based on the Marathon name.
It is a first-person shooter and has lore in it, so you are getting those things.
Well, it says PvP extraction, though. I mean,
yeah, but you said lore-based first-person shooter. It is those things. The thing you are taking issue with is that it's a multiplayer game and that it's an extraction shooter, which you didn't include in your description this time. Right? It is a lore-based first-person shooter. It's the same thing.
I think
Marathon.
I think the issue when you think lore-based shooter, you think a
You're
singular experience, right? Oh, my camera's frozen. Okay, can you hear me?
I can
Um,
hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think people think, you know, you're taking that journey on yourself and discovering that lore through the means of that you would traditionally expect, right? I think the concern is how do you deliver the things you guys are talking about, which you know far more about the marathon history than I do actually. But how do you deliver that type of lore and experience in a game whose fundamental gameplay concept is PvP extraction?
Glad you asked. Allow me to explain exactly how you do it, because Bungie has an incredibly good track record for doing exactly that thing. So one of the complaints
I don't know if they do.
They do.
Do
And
they?
let me tell you,
Because
100% they do.
Hoeg just pointed out about I Love Bees. Like
That was years ago, and the
Was
team
years
that they have now
So
is
they-
a lot better at working on ARG. So
They have a
like,
great track record. If
But
we
you're talking about Destiny,
exclude their
right?
track record,
yes,
problem.
I'm talking about Destiny.
But here's the
Destiny
problem, right?
has
Destiny lore
has
doesn't work for me because you're engaged in a multiplayer environment, and so like every other multiplayer environment we've ever played video games in, it doesn't convey story in the same way or in the same ease because you're trying to engage with other people at the same time. They're either talking over cutscenes or they're telling you to stop reading that thing, and then you're proceeding on.
Okay, so if I could to just show you what Destiny has done well
Yeah,
in this space, and then explain how I
I'm
think.
open-minded.
he
on it.
always defends Destiny blindly. Just let him
No,
go.
I don't. I gave their game a
kidding.
5. So I do have problems with Destiny as a game and Destiny's story, and people who say Destiny are bad, I say you're correct unless you don't play the game. Then shut up. You have no stake in this. Only I'm allowed to say it's bad because I play it. Okay, I put in the time. All right.
I took your Gollum critiques, and you haven't even played it.
I also prefaced all of them with I haven't played it though.
Fair.
So. All right. So Destiny does certain things that are bad in storytelling that you should be worried about, but not for Marathon. They do like their in-game cutscenes and ability to tell a story in their game natively is pretty rough. And I think everybody knows that, right? Yeah. But the things they're really good at is they're good at doing the stuff that was in Marathon, which is stories that you read in a terminal that are kind of separate from the game, big paragraphs. And they've been doing that first through the grimoire of Destiny 1, and secondly through lore entries that they've now turned into books through the extended lore in Destiny. And all of that stuff you have to sort of like separate from the game. You press pause and you inspect your weapon and you read a paragraph and it's lore about the characters and the world and et cetera, et cetera. All of that stuff can exist in a multiplayer game and feel, you know, like it's a part of the game, but you don't have the pressure of playing multiplayer. So that's the first thing, is that
do you not have any problems with trying to read through your shotgun description and people are telling you to get to the next ring or whatever?
No, because if it's like in Destiny, you'll be able to do it from a menu when you're not in the game, because they wouldn't expect you to press pause and read. So there's going to be probably a lobby or social space that you can go to in between rounds, and in there you'll do all your reading. So the only difference
is the thing I really love about a game
is
when I cannot play it. That's for the
but the problem is you're saying that it was not in line with Marathon's legacy, and I would argue Marathon's legacy is the best part is when you weren't playing it and you were reading about it in the world. So nothing's changing is my point. It is holding that consistent.
I did all of that while I was playing the game, though. Like you playing
pause.
the game and you're discovering.
You roll into the terminal. You
roll into the terminal and discover. You're going to do that in this game, but the difference is if it's like Destiny, when you trigger certain events and unlock certain things, it's going to unlock the lore entry, and then after the match or the extraction, you'll just do it at a different time. So that I would say the change there is minimal. It's basically doing the same thing in theory. The second thing that Destiny is really good at, aside from that that lore that isn't really in game but you're learning about it as you play, is the ARG events, and they allude to that a lot in the Vidoc, that this is basically going to be the ARG game, and all of the ARG stuff they've done in Destiny has been amazing. It's like the reason I play Destiny is because even though it's a mediocre game a lot of the time, every once in a while it's a fantastic game that you can't really fully appreciate if you weren't there for the whole ride. And so I've stuck with it for that reason, and also because people pay me to do that. But like the ARG stuff is really, really good. And if they could turn this extraction game that is actually secretly a game that's packed with secrets and story and lore, and you're uncovering it as a community and picking apart layers of the stuff, it's going to be amazing. And one of the reasons I think that they're going that route is because the announcement was an ARG event. the trailer had an ARG clue. There was a mini game where people were putting together a puzzle and trying to figure out a number of codes, and then it unlocked a live stream to a YouTube video where people had to type in that said number of code a number of times to unlock the Vidoc, and then the Vidoc itself had clues to yet another ARG event that people are still theorizing about and unraveling. So this, I think it could live up to the Marathon name, and I think it can do that through crazy weird storytelling and some of the other stuff. I get why people are balking at like the art style and the world looking a lot different, but part of the reason I play games is because I love the fact that our industry hasn't settled yet, and it can just like spiral into this crazy new next level thing, and I'm just excited to be surprised by what this game is. I also think Bungie's good at making multiplayer games when they have their A team on it.
I like your excitement.
Their A team has been gone since 2018, and they've been working on Marathon. So, you know, they could do it. They could
I'd
be
love
a
to be as
good
excited
game.
as you, Travis. I would, but to me, Marathon is a single player story focused shooter, and I think if you're unpacking secrets the whole time, and you're discovering post-it notes on a bulletin board in one of the levels to get you to another video somewhere on YouTube, it's not really the same as engaging with a story like you did with Marathon originally. That's just how I feel about it right now, and that's giving you full benefit of the doubt that they actually pull off everything that you say, which I don't know. It strikes me that a lot of
like draw the rest of the owl here.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, that's true. I think people are saying that who only watched the trailer, not the Vidoc. The Vidoc had a lot more insights into it. And also, if you're just close to Bungie as a studio and know what they've been working on, it's pretty clear what this game's going to be, or it's more clear anyway, certainly. But you guys are also drawing the other half of the owl. You're just deciding to draw it like crap, right? You're just assuming the worst out of this thing because it's a multiplayer game. I'm drawing the rest of it and giving them a little more charity.
I don't think a repetitive multiplayer activity is going to give me the same feeling as marathons of old.
But you're also, again, you're drawing the repetitive part.
Well,
I'm looking at this, and
it is repetitive by its nature. An extraction shooter. You give me that genre as your definition. It's a set number of maps. And you're going to do the same thing over and over again.
All games are repetitive in their nature, though, Hoeg.
You're outside of the library in Halo, you generally are getting other things that you're doing that are not as repetitive as just playing the same map over again.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue Marathon is a fairly repetitive game, especially by modern standards. You like games like Fortnite, which is an incredibly repetitive game, right?
Yes, but I wouldn't hold Fortnite up to the legacy of Marathon.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair, but this isn't Fortnite. It's a Marathon game that's trying to reimagine what Marathon is in today's environment. And I think if that answer to Bungie is a extraction shooter with some crazy story stuff hidden in there, I think they could pull it off. Look, for me, innocent until proven guilty when it comes to games. I will assume your game is probably going to be the thing you're telling me it's going to be if you are a talented studio, until I play the game and I decide that, that was incorrect.
Isn't Bungie's most recent exercise in video game making essentially a complete obfuscation of what their game is, or failure to reach what they were told you that it was in Destiny? I mean, isn't Destiny the famous "you can go there" game? Isn't Destiny, we're going to tell an enormous space opera, and then you wind up with, I don't have time to explain what I don't have time to explain?
That is taken on its worst parts, correct, but it's also the game that brought us the Witch Queen, right? Fantastic expansion, really good storytelling, really good shooter. They're also the studio that created the gunplay sandbox that has continued to keep players interested despite the fact that the game has often given into its worst demons, right? And shown to be underwhelming. There's also the argument that at the time Destiny started to go downhill, that it was because a lot of their talent was pulled off of Destiny and put onto Marathon from
evaluating Last of Us. Yeah.
From Shadowkeep. That was when they lost a lot of their leadership with Beyond Light. Most of the team that built Destiny were working on Marathon or other projects. They've got other stuff in the pipeline. And then every year after that, it's been fewer and fewer. The team that built Lightfall, which is the worst one that we've seen, I would argue, in expansions, was made by a group of people I did not recognize when I went to that preview event. It was like, I don't know any of these people. They're all very clearly very green, clearly have trouble building some of the Destiny stuff. And and also I would imagine we're had to design it on a extremely tight budget and timeline just because of the fact that they kind of had the rug pulled out of them with the final shape essentially getting delayed a year. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about with that, but I think Bungie is still a talented studio. I think that when they're
class in terms of gunplay.
It looks like it's going to be a great game. It just looks like it's going to be a great game that has no connection to Marathon whatsoever. And I think it's like great game, wrong IP, because they're going in and they're like, I heard that they're making another Marathon game, and I thought, fantastic. That's just, I've been waiting for this for years. And then I see, okay, it's not set anywhere near the Marathon, which is kind of a thing that's relevant.
We'll see.
Well, they've said it's not set near the Marathon, that it's set in an entirely different place. So they've told us that. It doesn't appear to have any of the sort of important character elements of the, because Marathon itself was kind of the story of Durandal and what, and basically breaking free and so forth. That doesn't appear to be...
And Elder Gods.
Yeah, that doesn't appear to be referenced at all. The thematic elements are very different. Marathon itself was notable for a particular style of plot, a particular style of development. And you're saying they could do it in an entirely different way.
They have to.
I mean, sure, yes, they have to a certain extent.
Yeah, the old one's not an option, and neither should we be contented with that as an answer to what Marathon is.
But it's such a huge break.
I do have to warn you that Travis is totally okay with making a Devil May Cry Final Fantasy game. So
exactly, Final Fantasy 16 is going to be awesome. So
if we're going to say that this is going to be a good, extraction-based shooter, cool. But I'm looking at a bookshelf full of things that we could equally use for the IP, for an extraction shooter, and they would have as much connection to it. And that's everything from Larry Niven down to Jekyll and Hyde, because this thing has no connection whatsoever to the Marathon, thing that we've seen here, other than the fact that they briefly show us what appears to be a compiler. That's our connection. That's the only element that seems to really draw in a strong way.
If you think that the Elder Gods and other Marathon lore aren't going to be incorporated in this game through a variety of extremely elaborate ARG components and lore entries and stuff, you're out of your mind. So that's the first thing. It is Marathon.
Reference those things, and then we'll go back to playing another extraction arena.
I don't think that is as simple as it is. A lot of Destiny's little mind games that they play are community based, where the entire community is pulling together to try to accomplish stuff and acting in a way that isn't to the benefit of the core gameplay loop in order to accomplish something, like failing a raid encounter but triggering something that unlocks some sort of secret, stuff like that. So I think there will be events where extraction isn't essentially the goal of the community.
And I'm super excited about all the puzzles that other people will have to solve.
That is an aspect of the Travis, right?
Aspect
you describe how they got to the Vidoc, all that happened before I even knew anything was going on. So you just miss it.
Yeah. You'll miss some stuff. That's just true of live games, but you will gain access to all of the stuff that the community unlocks. So you'll still have your terminal and your lore stuff and all that, and you'll try, what happens in Destiny.
But you said it's not going to be integrated into the gameplay because you're going to have to get to that through a pause menu. Is your vision of this?
No. And so what they do in Destiny is when the community unlocks something, the entire community gains access to it, and they usually throw a cutscene in for everybody that wasn't online, or even for the people who were online, that kind of explains this thing happened in the universe and now this new thing is opened, and then you go, oh whoa. So even if you were gone, you get caught up with some sort of introduction, and then you get thrown into whatever that activity is, and you have an opportunity to unlock it or seek out or whatever. It happens in Destiny. And so I think this is huge. I really think the thing that separates us is, are you the type of person who is really reactionary with your games, which is what I would describe Hoeg as, certainly on the show. He's pretty, stuck in his ways. He's little more conservative
brand, and that you should stick within the parameters of the brand that made you what you are. I think that they pretend like the legacy of Final Fantasy is to change everything all the time, when that is clearly not what it was. It was an RPG first and foremost. Now we don't have parties, and now we don't have turn-based fighting. We have swinging a big giant sword around like we're in freaking Devil May Cry. And I probably should have used the bigger F word there, because apparently that's the primary way in which the characters in Final Fantasy communicate this time around.
I think that if game developers took Hoeg's advice, they would quickly find themselves filing for bankruptcy.
Man, I mean, I don't even know.
You cannot forge your future off of the past of a market that does not exist anymore. There is not a space for a marathon game that runs in the same way. I think the developer has to innovate and create something new. Could they have created something closer to what Marathon was? Certainly. I think that could have been successful. But this is Bungie. They don't do what you expect, and I think that's part of what makes that studio special. And the fact that they're doing something weird and different should excite people who are familiar with Bungie's track record. That's they go their own way. They try new stuff. They make genres that they haven't dabbled in it with yet, and they usually find themselves pretty successful. And I think that earns some benefit of the doubt in my book.
This just seems like it was a better opportunity to launch a new IP rather than go one that seems like a complete disconnect from what they're trying to establish. Like, just the visual elements are such a complete irreconcilability with the previous games.
They have to be different.
Well, I like the
art. Sure,
it doesn't have to
make
be
a new
marathon,
IP.
Travis. You're
Do
taking
something
the
that fits
assumption.
with it.
You're defending it from after the fact. What Ian is saying is that there's nothing that is evocative of Marathon in what we saw. I like the art. I like the rendered stuff they showed. But
yeah, it looks
it
like
doesn't
a good
have to
game.
be Marathon. It could be, whatever you want to call your new IP.
But Bungie made it Marathon, and I think that is fine. Like the whole stay off my IP thing is such a bullshit argument. I hear people say they feel like they own the IP because they experienced it when they were a teenager or whatever. And it's Bungie's IP.
Well, no,
they wanted to make a marathon game.
They're trying to sell us the nostalgia. Like
you don't dig
why
up
they are
Marathon.
You don't
They're
dig
trying
up
to sell it to Ian and me.
You don't
if they were trying to sell it to Ian and you, they would not have made it an extraction shooter. They would not have changed the art style as much as they did. I don't think they're trying to sell it to you. I think that they're trying to honor the legacy.
Marathon for what reason?
They absolutely are trying to sell it to people who have you're using a brand and you're trying to sell it to people who have a positive association with that brand. So it's like saying, hey, we've, got the next Coke is going to be like a, beef bouillon in a can. You might be saying, hey, it might be the best beef bouillon ever, but maybe Coke is the wrong brand for it.
The problem with that argument is
shortcake is the wrong thing to make a first person.
Okay. The problem with that argument,
so Marathon is new Coke.
Yeah. The problem with that argument is that it's completely stupid immediately after you hear it. So the games are not Coke products made in a manufacturing plant. They're not batch processing. All right. They are creative undertakings that do not have a formula. And the problem. Wait. Hey, I let you finish. Let me finish. All right. The problem.
You haven't let me finish anything ever.
The problem with you and Hoeg is that you view these things as these studios as being their role being to pump out thing that you love like it's a processing plant.
No,
right?
that isn't what I view at all.
Here's the thing you love. Here's the thing you love, and it's got to be just like the last one. Final Fantasy always has to have these things on it, and the problem with this is that this
argued for Final Fantasy having to have any particular thing. I think that the structure of the game has to maintain itself within its genre. But I'm not the guy sitting there. It has to have Moogles. That's not me.
Well, I think that you're trying to put a lot of conditions on an inherently artistic undertaking that does not follow that formula at all. They're not making Coca-Cola. They're making a new type of product every single time, and they cannot.
They're chasing an audience that didn't play their games before. That's what they're chasing in those previews, and I suspect that's what Bungie's chasing.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? There's not a huge market of Hoegs audiences out
that didn't
there.
Like your product originally, you tend to alienate the people that did. Star Wars, we've talked about this.
I think that there's you're wrong about that. I think
it's a fundamental question here that you guys are. I think the fundamental question they're asking, Travis, is nothing is wrong with what you're proposing from a game standpoint. And if Bungie wants to go off and do something new and creative, by all means do it. But the fundamental question is why use the Marathon IP to do that when it doesn't seem to tie directly to what came before? Because if you look at something like Doom, hold on. if you look at something like Doom, right, which was fundamental to the whole gaming industry, right, back in the mid 90s, they bring Doom back in 2016. And I think widely celebrated that they paid homage to what Doom is, but brought Doom into the future, right? And Doom that was like game of the year for many people. Why call it Marathon if you're not going to seemingly pay homage to what Marathon was?
I think that Ian and Hoeg are completely speculating that it has nothing to do with Marathon. And I think that they will be almost immediately proven to be incorrect. So that's the first thing. Second thing, it's Bungie's IP. And I think the fact that they're using it instead of creating a new one is them paying tribute and honoring the legacy of Bungie and bringing that forward. And this whole like, oh, why not just call it something else? It to me is just such a bullshit argument. They made Marathon and they're going to continue making it, and they've got this new vision for what it is. I'm not saying Marathon's going to be a fantastic game. I don't know yet, but I'm willing to give them a chance because I appreciate when artists create new and exciting art that I wasn't expecting. That's why I game. And I realize some people game
itself is why it's not Marathon. That they've admitted already. It's a PvP extraction shooter. You can roll your eyes at me all you want, but I think where we differ here is that you seem to believe that the institution, Bungie or whomever, have an ultimately good idea, when I believe that they can make mistakes with what they've done, and that this seems to be a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, if we're at Bungie can do no wrong, then we've got a self-fulfilling, like, hey, we don't need to decide.
When has anybody said that, Ian?
Well, you've said, I trust Bungie, and that seems to be the core of your argument here. And
no, incorrect.
I'm just like, okay, we trust Bungie, but what we've got here is an IP that really appears to be doing a hard shift in terms of tone, in terms of visual style, in terms of storytelling, in terms of all of these things.
Why is that a bad thing?
Seemingly to chase after quadrants, right? Because for the most part, Travis, the entire history of video games now in the 21st century is flattening out all of the interesting things and making everything 4-quadrant appeal. I mean, like, we've talked about this. There's boredom in the video game industry, and Bungie moving and saying, well, we're going to make a PvP extraction shooter out of one of our most famous intellectual properties, I think is a concern for people that like things that are new and different and interesting and represent multiple genres. And not everything has to be a live service multiplayer game.
This doesn't seem like Bungie's, Bungie in the past has had some really big innovations. This, in fact, seems not to be like we're moving towards something new and different. It seems to be we're moving towards what everyone else is doing.
Again, we arrive at you guys drawing the game to be as crappy as you want it to be.
No,
I think it'll be good, but it's the same
already
game
said
we're already
repeatedly.
playing.
It looks like a good game. It doesn't look like a marathon game. And you keep
what
putting
you just
words
said
in my
was not
mouth that I
drawing it
haven't
as a good
said.
game. What you just said was not you describing a good game. That was you describing the opposite of a good game. You said that it was you said that it wasn't going to be creative
because it's a good game, like because it works.
No, you said it's not going to be creative. I'm saying that everything that we know about the game so far.
I did not say that it was not going to be creative. I said that it's not the
No, I think the art
sort of paradigm shift.
Your argument was that it was not. Bungie has surprised and delighted us with new and interesting stuff, and this seems to be not that, right? AKA uncreative path.
No, AKA not the paradigm shift that Bungie had repeatedly hit us with.
And I think that's wrong.
I
think that if you look at the Vidoc, they very clearly are saying, like, look, it's an extraction shooter, but like, look, it's not going to be what you think it is. You know what I mean? Like, that's what
they had the opportunity to show us the Vidoc at the showcase, and instead they showed us the CGI trailer with robots shooting each other.
Because it's the most ARG thing that you could do. That's the most Bungie thing ever, is to hide the actual show behind a weird puzzle. And doesn't that indicate to you that they're going to be doing something weird with this game that you guys aren't going to see coming? I just don't know how you could get.
I'm also not going to be able to participate in it.
I don't know how you could get from that reveal and the path we got to get to Vidoc, oh, this is going to be just like every other extraction shooter. They're not doing anything creative. How could you draw that conclusion?
I like their art. I think their gunplay will be top of class. I think it will be a fun game to play. I just don't think it's a marathon.
And you are objectively wrong about that. It is marathon. Literally.
Well, then what isn't marathon?
Games that aren't called marathon. Halo, Destiny. Different game.
So if we just put the name on it, but it features Sherlock Holmes
We're back in
I don't
Star
know,
Wars
making
land again.
cakes. Then it's a
I will
marathon
accept
game.
your straw man and say yes. Technically, it would be.
Okay, then I mean, here's the problem. We're talking about an IP that has an existence, and people do expect that things are going to take place in the sort of familiar universe if they're being marketed in that fashion. Like
It
if
will
I go,
do that. I guarantee you, it will do that.
it doesn't appear to. And if this is what they're sort of marketing to us as this is what the game is going to be, it does not at this stage appear. I can say on faith, Bungie has made a lot of games that I really liked. Bungie's also made some games that really sucked. And, or that
you leave Oni out of your mouth.
I liked
like
Oni, but
I like
Oni was
too.
unfinished, like Oni where you play like all of the levels twice because they ran out of time to finish anything up. It was a really, they were reaching for something. They were trying to make something really good. It just didn't actually pay off.
I mean, they've made some crappy stuff, but everything we can tell about this game is that they're playing to Bungie's strengths. They are doing weird ARG stuff. They're telling story asynchronously out of the game, which is a very marathon thing to do, essentially, right? Like the difference between reading the terminals and playing the shooter were basically two different games, right? In marathon. And they're getting people hooked using a really like, oh, guys, this is for everyone type of game, right? Like they do with Destiny, and then immediately using that audience to make something really weird and different. And I think that's like, just as somebody who knows about what Bungie is good at doing, I look at this and I go, that's kind of smart. Like if you are consistent with all the stuff that I know you do well, this could be a hit, and it could be weird and different, and it could incorporate and pay honor to the IP that they've chosen to build their world in. I think it could be awesome.
On thought, this game looks like it would actually fit better with the Oni theme than it does with the marathon.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to move on.
Because at least an extraction shooter would make sense in that universe.
We're going to move on. And when this game releases in 2027, we will invite Ian back to have a conversation to talk about Travis's review of it, because I'm sure he will try and review it.
I actually think this game is going to be coming out a lot sooner than you.
So do I. I was just joking.
Yeah.
But
also, why did we need two Hoegs to fight me on this one? Like, why was that necessary?
The gotcha game. It'll be good.
Why did we need Hoeg? Why did we need Hoeg the Gray and Hoeg the White to fight me on this one?
Bungie is famous for their release date shenanigans. I guess the other question I have is, will they honor the Bungie bucks for this one?
Bungie bucks? What are Bungie bucks?
Do you guys not? So
back with Bungie bucks from like decades ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
When they released Myth 2, it shipped with a showstopper of a bug, which was that if you installed it anywhere other than the default directory and then tried to uninstall it, it uninstalled everything. Like it wiped your drive. This
it was malware that they sold.
Yeah. This is a real showstopper of a bug in a way that I don't think anything else has had a shipped product with a bug that bad. They had to recall everything. They almost went bankrupt doing it. And as an apology to the fans, they gave out, everyone who bought this got 2 20% off coupons, which specifically note that they do not expire. I still have mine. So
you're gonna have to try and use it and report back for sure.
I'm gonna see if I could be like, hey, I want my 20% off, guys.
If I'm not mistaken, they have honored those in recent
I don't see how they couldn't, right?
Yeah.
So I guess I will try to see if they'll take that, and perhaps we could do a video on that one, because does not expire is a dangerous thing to put on a coupon these days.
No doubt. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I will say, Travis, is I really do like your positivity on this, and I would love for it to be something that I thoroughly enjoyed. I think the actual moment-to-moment gameplay will be great, but yeah, I miss a company just going out there and making something new and interesting without the added aspect of, we're going to try to trick an audience into playing it for us.
without the interesting part. New and interesting without the interesting part, or the new.
I think you can have an experience that is interesting within its own four corners rather than trying to trick an audience with another genre and then show the weirdness.
The funny thing is, my take on this is completely different. Like, my take on Marathon was, this looks really cool. I hope that Bungie can return to PvP greatness, because Destiny's PvP sucks. So their shooting mechanics are fantastic. They're probably up near the best of the business in that, and I have full faith it'll feel good to play and run well and look good. I just hope it's a solid PvP experience, and if it is from Bungie, then I'll play it.
I think it will be. I mean, they said dedicated servers was music to my ears in the Vidoc.
Oh, it's 2025. I freaking hope so.
Yeah.
How do you not have dedicated servers in this day and age? I mean,
well, here's the thing. Destiny
Stop slamming Xbox, Ains.
Yeah.
The other
Destiny technically has dedicated servers, by the way. They just don't advertise it that way. But it doesn't matter.
The other thing is that what Bungie has done in the past with this IP is basically going and saying, hey, every time they've basically set something in what is essentially the same universe, they've sort of started a new IP that is the same universe. Like Pathways into Darkness sets out their sort of starting, and then they went to Marathon, which is admittedly not 100% because they were still figuring things out. And then it goes to Halo, which is, it's very easy to say Halo is set in that universe. Like, I think it would actually
Halo appears to be in the Marathon universe, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if they'd said, like, hey, we're doing whatever else, and then made it clear that they were setting it in the same universe, that would be very much along the lines of what Bungie's done in the past. I think this is actually the first time I've seen Bungie go back in that sense.
Well, and they did my least favorite thing in video games or movies, which is they named it the same thing as the first one. So now it's going to be Marathon 2025 or whatever.
Yeah. We were moving on, guys. We were moving on.
Hey, Ains, sorry about that. We can move on. We have to talk about Bungie some more anyway because we've got a last one story.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good transition. That's what we'll move over to, actually. So, funny enough, coming out of the conversation after the showcase was a Bloomberg report from Mr. Schreier about how Last of Us factions, which many of us assumed would show up at this showcase because we've been hearing about Last of Us factions for a long time now as being the big Naughty Dog multiplayer project, which didn't show up, obviously. We hear a report that the project, and I've actually talked to other people about this. I don't know if you've heard anything specifically, Travis, but I've talked to other people now that the project is being rebooted for a third time, and the scope of it has been narrowed with the team kind of shifting a bit. And according to the report, Bungie had something to do with this. Now, Bungie apparently looked at this, I'm paraphrasing, but apparently looked at this scope of what Last of Us Factions is going to be and basically said that your long-term viability from a kind of multiplayer live service profitability standpoint is not very good. So
explain it to us was how it was described. Talk to us
say it
about
again,
how
Hoeg?
this, I mean, in that article, explain it to us was how that was described. That they said Bungie, which I think is shorthand for people involved at Bungie, because as you know, corporations don't actually do things like that. They don't walk into another corporation's office and examine things. That's a person that does that. So
Sure.
Bungie isn't doing anything there. The corporate form is probably a weird way to articulate that from Mr. Schreier at Bloomberg. But somebody at Bungie, the knowledge base at Bungie, is going through the live services that Sony has in various states of undress and saying, explain your economic approach here. Explain how this is going to deliver a return on investment to our corporate overlords. And at least as the story goes, we don't get like the answer to that question in that article, but we do get the notion, well, apparently it didn't go very well because it's getting scraped back and they're going to try it over again because they hadn't really been thinking about the economics or it just didn't make sense to now the knowledge base that is coming from Sony's new acquisition at Bungie. To me, that's exactly what we've talked about in this space and elsewhere that was intended by what Sony purchased Bungie for, that they brought in people that had an experience running games as a service and figuring out how that worked economically.
And making mistakes in that space.
Making a lot of mistakes and saying, hey, we're going to use that institutional know-how to help our own processes. So them looking at the games that are being worked on within Sony is no surprise to me at all. So I think the reaction was a little stronger than I would have expected because it's exactly what Sony should be doing with that knowledge base.
Yep.
Agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think we agree on this one. So it
happens occasionally.
A little, yeah, it does.
And so Travis is going to change his mind because of that.
No. I've spoken with somebody at Bungie who was able to confirm this story, and I think Hoeg, you might be surprised to learn that it appears to have been more official, a consultation role than you might suppose it was, as in a like, hey,
they had their subsidiary sign a contract to consult on this.
No, but like hey, our internal review process is telling us that this game is bad. Can you come and talk to us about it? And then they were like, yeah, do not release it in this state. Here's why. So it was more like kind of a shared knowledge pool and that sort of thing is my understanding. I only have one person telling me this, so take it with a grain of salt, obviously. My understanding is that they reached out for help to certain people and that those people were like, yeah, this does have problems. And I would not be surprised if somebody at Bungie ends up going and working on this project, because I suspect that will become increasingly common at Sony, that you will hear somebody at Bungie got promoted and moved over to a different business unit at Sony and is now working on said live service game, because that is their brain trust for live service. The good news is Sony is going to get so much value out of the acquisition. I think it was a great thing for Sony, not great for Bungie in the long term would be my argument, but maybe great for the people there. I think the bad news is that the brain drain has already begun. It kind of begun internally.
So we talked about being concerned with from the start, right?
Yep. It began internally with the people moving into work on a different game, Marathon. But if you like Destiny, you probably should be sweating right now. And I think it's going to increasingly continue to happen as Sony attempts to launch 10 live service games in the next 6 years or whatever it was they said.
None of, so we'll see if that goes.
Which we've seen none of. I think they will show up late to that party, but I think they will get there, and I think they'll get there using a lot of Bungie talent that are not working on Destiny, importantly.
Because we know Guerrilla has the multiplayer project they've announced, Guerrilla, which is obviously big first party. But we also know, I was going to ask you guys, so the game that they were working on from kind of a second party perspective with Deviation Games, we talked about a couple weeks ago, where that team was like 90% laid off and the project canceled. I'm starting to wonder now, given this report, if this is going to become more of a regular occurrence with some of the things they're working on as they narrow kind of down into the games they think are going to be truly viable. I wonder if they were a little further along in that Deviation Games project and something similar happened where they kind of had a review to say, guys, this isn't it. This isn't going to work.
I think their 10 live service games thing was always with the assumption that 3 or 4, if they were lucky, would be successful. And I think that their number count is a little weird. So I think they're counting Marathon. I think that is one of the games
for sure.
Like, we acquired that. That's going to be a live service game. B, I think they're counting MLB The Show. That is technically a live service game according to them, even though they release a new one every year. I think they do count that. So their count's a little odd. And so I wouldn't be surprised if in 6 years from now they're like, yeah, we got to 10, and then some of the ones they point to were like, really? That doesn't seem like you got there. So there's going to be some weird stuff. But yeah, I'm it's good for Sony. Makes me sad about Bungie.
Well, I mean, we talk a lot about things like Microsoft and having Redfall and everything else and strong hands and weak hands and issues that I have with some of the things that we can see out of their management style or lack thereof. This is what a strong hand looks like. You roll in consultants and they say, no, this isn't working. And ideally, if you're Sony, you avoid putting resources into things that aren't going to be games that bring surprise into light or whatever you else want to describe it as. And there's going to be that moment where if it's public, because Factions was announced years and years and years ago, you have this moment where you get a pair back or you get a report like this from Bloomberg. Ideally for these companies, you aren't having the announcements, you aren't going through that process, and these things are happening a little bit more quietly. But I think it's good to have other eyeballs looking at things and saying, no, this isn't a great direction. Now, unfortunately for Sony fans, Factions has evaporated Naughty Dog's output for years now. I mean, outside of The Last of Us Part 1, again, hope you like it for the third time, they haven't released
anything. Wasn't even primarily made by Naughty Dog. But
yeah, they haven't released anything. That's why in their apology statement or their response statement, however you want to take it from the Bloomberg article, they have to say, well, we are also working on a single player experience, whatever the hell that is. I think they mean a video game.
Yeah. It is a little odd that they weren't able to say it, but my real concern with this is why the heck would you take the studio Naughty Dog and make them work on anything like Factions? Like, why would you ever do that? That just seems to me like a complete squandering of talent. What's that?
I think Neil wanted to. I mean, certainly the indications on stage from him are that he wanted to do this thing big. It was supposed to be the multiplayer for part 1, and they blew it out. Or it was supposed to be the multiplayer for Last of Us 2, right? I mean, we're years beyond when they announced this thing.
Look, I'm all for studios doing things that they've never done before. As you know, Hoeg, I know treat this with irreverence. The reason for that,
from this choice notwithstanding, you continue to advocate for it. So
because there are triumphs. There's Sea of Thieves. There is Grounded. The games that would not have existed if creative people weren't allowed to get outside of their comfort zone and do what they do best, which is create and be creative. I think that's awesome. But I think at a certain point, you have to know when to cut your losses and go, okay, well, this idea didn't work out. To me, Factions, third time's the charm. I don't think so. I would just say, yeah, this idea is not working. It's drawing too much of our attention. We tried it. Let's move on and try something else. It's okay to cut ideas. Not everything has to make it to retail, but
it's a sunk cost fallacy, right? Like, just because you've worked on it for 3 years, you don't have to release something.
Exactly. And I think that, there were probably other things that Rare tried to do before Sea of Thieves that we never even heard about because they just said, not working, let's try something else, right? And that's pretty common. I just previewed a game on Friday that's made by some old CDPR employees that started their own company, and they told me that they kept pitching games to publishers, and they got no's 3 times. And then the 4th game that they pitched was like the one they least wanted to make. And publishers said, yeah, we'll fund that one. And now they're making it. And so they, this is sort of the process. And now they're making this game, and it's very weird and different, and something that there's some beauty to like your first 3 options getting rejected in this industry, and then you having to make the 4th one, and it just being like this thing you never thought you'd create. I think there's a certain kind of virtue to that. I really do. And I would implore Naughty Dog to learn that not everything they try is going to be a success, and move on to maybe
we've heard the same about Everwild. Everwild was apparently re-scoped and started over again. New project director.
Don't know what that game is.
Yeah, all we've seen is that trailer that we saw. What, 2019? Maybe.
I think we saw 2 trailers, right? And they looked pretty different.
Yeah. So yeah, well, that's the whole thing, right? So who knows? But yeah, no, I agree with you guys. I think the other thing with Factions that's kind of strange, just one more point on this, is that the multiplayer where Factions came from, of course, was Last of Us 1, which was 2013. We're now a decade removed from that, right? And especially in the multiplayer space, things have changed an awful lot in the past 10 years. And I think maybe, I'm just guessing here, of course, but I think maybe what's happened, right, is the idea of the fan base that love Factions, and it was a lot of fun. The idea of that being a standalone live service game in 2024 or 5, whenever it was going to release, maybe a bigger challenge than they realized, right? It's not as simple as just saying this is a multiplayer feature as part of a game that's already selling because it's a very popular game and has a great narrative, right? Standing on your own 2 legs as a live service multiplayer game is a whole different ball of wax, and Naughty Dog sounds like they might have bit off more than they could chew. And that pun wasn't even intended, but it works.
Yeah.
Does work well.
Either they're going to double down and maybe churn out something halfway decent with the help of Bungie, or they drop this idea and they move on to something else. But who knows how far along they are? If it's something where Bungie goes, with 6 months and changing this and that and this, we could have something halfway decent. That's great. But there is that question, right, of like, what counts as a successful live service? We kind of talked about this a while ago. Like, was Knockout City success? It ran 11 seasons and was a profitable game, but because it shut down like a year after it came out, a lot of people said, "Oh, it failed." And I don't think that that's how Valan Studios feels about that game. I would be curious to see internally what does Naughty Dog think this game's runtime is going to be? How many seasons do they expect it to support? Like, they must know it's not going to be Destiny 9-year run, right? Like, there's no way.
I think the problem you have, I agree with you, and I think the problem you have in that same line, right? the expectations from the fan base, right? You're talking about Naughty Dog, which is a premier first-party studio. One, you're talking about Last of Us, which is a global IP at this point, right? The expectations for what this would be massive, and
the
who
cost
knows
of
if
a
it can
failure.
deliver.
Cost of a failure is massive too, because it is an
Yeah.
IP that is spreading beyond the video game space, and
Yep.
so if they damage the IP with a bad product, then they're hurting more than what they would be. And I mean, this is a big shift when we're seeing all the online, that things have to be a big online project, because if you've got a bad game and it's just a single player or whatever, it's like, okay, whatever you get, like whoever buys this, it's a return on investment. But with an online thing, there's continual costs. It's actually entirely possible to lose money by releasing it. So
That is true.
And I think the longer this project takes to get off the ground, the more they stand to lose, right?
Yeah.
The more cost.
Oh yeah, I mean they've probably sunk quite a bit. I mean, you're talking about top tier talent, right? These aren't your. Well, I guess we don't know who's actually coding, right? But you're talking at least about some of your top first party studios' focus, as Hoeg was alluding to. So, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, well, that's opportunity cost as much as anything. Naughty Dog hasn't done anything.
Right.
Well,
right.
And the longer a project gets delayed, the more stale it is, and the more people will have innovated past you.
Correct.
And you get to this point where you're like, we have to rebuild everything to catch up to where we were trying to be.
Exactly my point with the multiplayer
part of dev. Yeah,
it's really especially multiplayer, right? Like it's evolving. Every game that releases from a AAA multiplayer perspective seems to kind of bring something new to the table, and it's just evolving rapidly in that sense.
Well, and I was surprised when they first announced it as blowing it out into its own game anyway, right? I mean, I don't know who really played The Last of Us solely for the multiplayer component, but it wasn't me. And then having it as the base for a big, long games as a service type of endeavor that was having all these resources thrown at it, at least as was described to us, was a surprise, because I don't find, random ruined cities in America to be as interesting as Destiny, or even as interesting as Fortnite, where you can have a cartoon fish fighting against Darth Vader if you're so inclined. It's the truth. You laugh. That's Fortnite.
It absolutely is. Yeah, and they've crushed
trying to
it.
turn Destiny into it, and it's really annoying me. We could talk about that too, but I don't know if you guys know, but this week Destiny got a Kratos skin, a Atreus skin, and a Ghost of Tsushima skin, and I was just like, oh,
it's funny
God,
because
it's happening.
There was a live stream last week, and I promise I won't take more than 30 seconds on this, but it's relevant. Is 343 did a live broadcast talking about season 4 in the future, and they joked about stuff being kind of fitting in the theme of the game, and like a lot of hardcore fans like us, I'm sure, want things that fit within the theme of the game. And then they joked, they were like, but god damn, you guys love the cat ears, because the cat ears just sold like crazy. It's like their best-selling item in the shop. And it's like, if you're a developer who's under financial strain, right, you have to develop stuff people are going to buy. There's give and take there that some players don't like. I mean,
I think
the people what they want.
So I think the live service model is a little bit chasing its tail with the Fortnite-ification of every game. You can have a successful live service game and not make it like Fortnite's model, but I think sometimes they look to that and they go, oh, you know what? That's the path, right? Do crossovers, put an Assassin's Creed Valhalla skin on my Guardian and Destiny. And I think that a certain amount of that cheapens the game if you're trying to... Destiny is not trying to make a Fortnite game. They're increasingly looking like they're headed that way, but that wasn't their original vision, right? Their original vision was that we're going to make our own universe and filled it with new original characters that you like and yada yada. We're not going to just make it kind of like this cheap horror of a game that it's sort of transforming into. And
I feel like Fortnite is taking some strays here, but I think it's worth noting that Fortnite's
the thing is, it's good for Fortnite. It's good for Fortnite, but they succeeded that model, and now people are going, that's the model. And I say, no, guys, that's not
because
the model.
they've made so much money, other companies are saying we need to do that.
Well, and I think
let's hope that we don't have
facing a bit by trying to run a battle pass that was most commonly compared to the Fortnite battle pass and found wanting. So I think their internal economics folks are probably looking at that as well.
Yeah,
and saying, where did we get hurt most? It was because people were not getting the value they expected from Fortnite.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I
let's
think
hope we don't get Captain America skins for Marathon and so forth. Or
I really hope not, because I just think like Fortnite. I think the reason that they're bombastic, it fits perfectly in what they're trying to create. It just works for that game. But also their model is we're a completely free game. You come in and you kind of deal with the craziness and the noise. Destiny is a paid game. You have to pay $60, $70, $100 a year to play this game. It's got story expansions and all this other stuff, and then on top of that, you're like doing this thing that reads to me as just like noise and really cheap, and you're trying to sell me this like random skin like that looks like another character from another game, and I go, that doesn't belong in a game I paid $70 for. That's sort of like it feels like it cheapens the experience a little bit and makes it feel a lot more like the formula of a free-to-play game, but I paid like full video game dollars for this. And so
when I get to Zavala in my Marathon game, I can come back to you with this cheapening argument.
I will 100% agree. If that happens, if they put a Destiny character in, and it's I'll
noting the timestamp, Hoeg, for future reference. Bear with me.
I guess the other thing I would love to see in these games is just the ability to turn off everyone else's skin. Because like I don't care if somebody's rocking a Captain America skin in Marathon. If I could turn it off and just play the game without seeing that, because then it's like,
that's what I said. I was having this argument with people on the Destiny podcast, and I said, I just hate it. I feel like it cheapens the game. And they said, Travis, if you hate it, don't buy it. And I said, well, when you buy it, you're the one who doesn't have to look at it. I have to look at it. This is like, we need an HOA for our video game, because I don't want to look at your ugly creature.
Yeah, I don't think they can give you a turnoff button, Ian, because essentially you're buying the right to impose that look on other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I don't like the notion of like, hey, I'm playing a game where they're actually selling the right to piss me off. Because
in Fortnite, I love having Paul Atreides fight Thanos. Like that's I enjoy that in Fortnite.
In Fortnite, you're talking about a crazy sort of off the wall universe, and that's fine. Like there's all sorts of, I can envision other IPs where this would be just perfect. Something like, a Clash of Universes kind of thing or whatever else. It's less so when you start talking about a serious IP, right? Marathon is supposed to be a serious IP. There's various other things that are supposed to be like serious and plot heavy.
Destiny, Halo, yeah.
And then it gets thrown out if somebody is, it's like if you're playing a D&D game and you're trying to do like deep politics, and then there's some guy who wants to play Bozo the Clown and throw pies at the king. Can we not?
Or murder hobo. I think that's exactly right. And to getting back to Naughty Dog situation, I find it really interesting that they want to be a live service, because I'm wondering, how do you sell? You can't Fortnite that game, right? I think we can agree that's a line that you really, really can't cross.
Flannel shirts for everybody, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking, Hoeg. It's like, how do you make a battle pass with content that's useful? Because it's all going to be like, jackets and T-shirts and jeans and stuff, and you can't put Darth Vader,
because you can't make it pay to win, so you couldn't have weapons or anything like that.
Warzone, except they sell you $30 Casio watches. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. People will buy things that they like in their game.
Oh, Warzone! I played Warzone last night, dude. They have like soccer player packs in that game. You can be Lionel Messi in Call of Duty. Like,
there's stuff in Call of Duty. They've jumped the
well, they've advanced past where I was last engaged with Warzone. But when Warzone started, I was like, well, first of all, first person. One of the reasons Fortnite is a massive success is third person is easier to sell. You don't just impose your look on other people. You see the person as you play them.
Of course.
But Warzone, when they were selling the really expensive watches, I was like, I guess this is what's working for them, but I can't imagine buying these particular cosmetics.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But
this whole in-game flag kills me, man.
And now I'm thinking, it can't, obviously we'll talk next week about it, but Diablo is the next conversation point. That's going to be a $70 game with battle pass and with paid cosmetic. Has $70 game with a battle pass and a paid store. It has all of it. Now they've been
foregone a monetary mechanism. I mean, they were the first with the real money auction.
If they could figure out how to do it, they'd have somebody waiting by your front door to hit you in the kneecaps and take your wallet. Like,
they've made it very clear there's no pay to win, which is great, of course. But I think we'll have a conversation next week about what that monetization model looks like too. But
yeah, I got
anyway,
to experience it a little bit,
especially since. Actually, I don't think I can say.
You can't say. Yeah, but I can't say.
And Travis shuts up. That's how that's
next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about it next week. But we can talk about the fact that we played a lot of Diablo. I'm sure you mentioned that at the top.
I did it before you got in. Yeah, I said our time has been spent. I did say that we played together. Some of my footage that I captured for the review has you in it, so you'll be running around in my review. I mean, I was carrying him basically, but he's there.
How dare you? What level did you get to, by the way? Are you allowed to say that?
I don't know. I'm not going to, just in case. Next week we'll come back to it. But anyway, back to PlayStation. I think kind of interesting times at PlayStation. A couple days before the showcase, we get this report out from Jim Ryan, right? The executive report out of how much they're selling and their revenue streams.
Very detailed.
But then you see all these other things. We talked about Pixel Opus shutting down. We talked about the Deviation Games cancellation. We obviously just talked about Last of Us. And then there's layoffs this week at PlayStation Visual Arts, another division with the PlayStation that helps, the artistic approach to these games. There's been big layoffs there. So kind of interesting. We didn't really we can touch briefly on Project Q and their earbuds, their new hardware announcements that were part of the showcase.
Who is
Dan's
that
already
for?
Dan's already shaking his head. And Dan, you've been quiet because of the live service conversation. But Project Q, a DualSense with a screen where you can remote play off your PS5. Go.
This is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Listen, remote play is stupid as it stands now. You're trying to sell me probably what's going to amount to a $200 or $250 device that I can do for, if I wanted to, far less with my phone.
Your phone.
On anything else. And I have to be connected to my PlayStation, which means it has to be on. If I'm not here,
the game has to be installed on your PS5.
Yeah, basically I'm just running I don't know what
remote.
I'm mirroring it. Yeah, I'm mirroring it. I'm going backwards, from what we've gone to. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't need earbuds. It's if I'm sitting here, and I've tried doing this before. Remote play is spotty at best. It's xCloud works better. It's not great still, but it's at least I'm not running it off of whatever crappy internet I have at my house. If it's relying on that, it's not great. It's not great. I tried using it at I think my in-laws once. I was like, this is garbage. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know who it's for.
I know who it's for. I can speak to that.
Yeah,
the person that can't sit up and walk to their TV and play their game on a normal screen.
Well, let's say, for example, that you live with somebody, right, and that they are using the TV, and that you want to play on the couch in a Switch-like device, and that, like me, you have internet that's fast enough to accommodate that sort of experience. You could pick up this device, remotely turn on your PlayStation, pick up where you left off via your cloud save, and continue to play the game in a remote format. And I think the advantage of buying their device versus a phone is this device will likely have integration, and because it's native, it'll be a little bit stronger in terms of that remote play, instead of getting text messages and having to get out of the app. And there's a lot of noise because the phone wasn't designed to be a remote play PlayStation device that I think they get rid of when you create a separate device for it. So I think it's a niche for sure, and I don't know if it's going to sell well, but it is for people who are PlayStation gamers who want a second screen as an option and are hardcore enough to not want to use their phone. That is a niche. I will give you that. But I can imagine it. I could see myself playing that for sure.
Well,
I need
and
all
then
those
have
requirements.
enough resources to go and buy a completely superfluous piece of technology, and not enough resources to have different TVs.
This sounds like it's going to have a dedicated fan base of 1,000 people.
I think you're probably right. Yeah, but I see the market. I could see myself doing it. I have a whole bunch of TVs and screens in my house, but if I had that device available at the ready, I might be tempted to do that rather than hook up my PlayStation to a different monitor or whatever. I could see that being just a path of least resistance. So yeah, I'll just play on the couch. That way, if I have to walk to the other room, I can keep playing.
Yeah, people
people want to play in the toilet. That's who this is for.
Yeah, it strikes me as it's probably best aimed at people in apartments, people that do have resource fights over TVs, and maybe it's it's Sony, maybe it's Japanese, but
Yeah.
I just don't see it as a very useful product, certainly for my life. And it'll be interesting to see whether it has any uptake. But if that's your get excited in your showcase that you waited 620 days for us to see, I'm not. So
in the
I
chat,
think,
somebody mentioned the Asian market, so where floor space might be at a particular premium.
Well, I think the Asian market will it will be a thing. I don't know if it'll sell well because I think they're probably in the category of just used phone instead. But
I'm looking
I live
forward
in a
to
city. I could see
more regulatory bodies around the world confusing this for cloud streaming. So
Of course. Of course. All right, so let me throw the one thing we didn't talk about that I think is most relevant to the conversation. Though, did you guys enjoy the movie trailer during the showcase?
Jesus.
Okay, so I hadn't seen the Gran Turismo trailer before. That the first line in that trailer is hacked to bits. Like I don't know what number of scenes they did to get how you take a trailer and for whatever reason we've moved away from in a world to having to use the dialogue in the movie. They took the sentence and it's got like at least 4 cuts in it. It sounds like your least favorite YouTuber in the world.
I don't think I noticed that. I'll have to go back and watch now. But I had watched the trailer. Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously I had watched the trailer, being into Gran Turismo and Forza and racing and stuff. But playing a movie trailer during your showcase was a bizarre. Like I was sitting here by myself watching the showcase, literally right here. I was watching on the monitor, and when it came on, I looked around the room for someone to look at me, to actually ask, what the hell are they doing? There's no one here, I'm like, what's going on right now?
Narrator would be useful, right? Because I think that's just the Nintendo approach. They saw the success with Mario; those were in the Nintendo Directs at least twice, if not 3 times, right? And so I think they just said, yeah, we got a movie coming. Throw the Gran Turismo trailer in there. And it comes across as very abrupt when you've just been rolling video game trailers for an hour.
Yeah. I mean, there's maybe 1 or 2 characters in the world, video game wise, that could pull off showing a movie trailer during a showcase, and that's Mario and Nintendo. I mean, they can pull that off. Gran Turismo during PlayStation, they can't pull that off.
That trailer,
I feel like
looks more interesting than the Mario movie to me, but
I didn't see that in the showcase because I haven't seen the showcase, but I saw the trailer and I was just like, really? This is where they're going with things? I guess. The fact that was put in the showcase is just like,
yeah, it's Last Starfighter racing form.
My criticism would be that I feel like showcases already have a really hard time successfully debuting video game racing trailers. Like video game trailers that have racing as the core concept, they lose like 80%. That's when you see everybody tweeting about the show so far because they just take a break. Except for maybe Ains and
Meanwhile, I'm glued to the scrreen.
Ains and I are the only people watching at that point.
Ains is only watching the Xbox showcase for the Forza.
Dude, the Forza presentation last year was the best part of the show.
What number of Forza are we on?
Everybody else takes their bathroom breaks during
It's just time. Forza Motorsport now. They're doing the single name now. Sorry,
they are, yeah. So I can't imagine the decision behind, hey, you know what does badly during showcases? Video racing trailers. Let's put a racing movie trailer. We'll detach it even 1 more from our core audience that is here and show that. It's
the only thing that could have been worse is if they had Fast and the Furious cast members present it.
Whoa,
right?
Whoa! True.
Okay,
they'd be so far above the shark they couldn't even see the shark.
Ian, I would like to have your legal representation. I've been attacked by Hoeg. It was full-blown assault. It was.
I'm a defense lawyer, so I'd be on Hoeg's side on this one.
This is of course a reference to the
call me when you punch you back
by Mr. Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez at the Video Game Awards a few years back, where they didn't.
Man, how awkward was that? It was so awkward. Not as bad as the movies, but it was bad.
Whoa. Okay, first of all, yes, it was bad. But celebrity appearances at shows are always bad.
Let's not talk about Al Pacino's.
They're always bad.
One.
Even Keanu Reeves, I would argue, was a little cringe. I was in the room for that one, and I was like,
I was in the room for that one too, and that was amazing. It was fun.
I know. Our eyes met from across the room, and I said, someday. And,
we did the Always Sunny thing. We were like,
yeah. It's funny. We were in that room together and we didn't know. It's actually how I met my fiance too. We were.
I didn't know you at the time.
Didn't know.
I
didn't know you either. Yeah, but then we fell in love. Yeah. So I think that those are always bad, but also they were promoting Crossroads, which was a terrible game, and Michelle Rodriguez has never played Tekken, as you know from her pronouncing the game wrong. It was bad, but the movies are fantastic.
Do the minimum amount of research before presenting to gamers, please.
You'd think.
Trust me.
I actually think Rock is the worst presenter at the Video Game Awards. We've talked about that too.
Oh,
who was
back when he revealed the Xbox?
Rock. No, The Rock. They had like a video of him at his gym.
Oh, doing his
his
energy drink.
It was his energy drink.
Yeah, but Hoeg, remember when he unveiled the Xbox with
Bill Gates?
That is maybe the best celebrity appearance of all time in the game space, and that was The Rock. It was the same guy. So he's
just goes to show you
20 years removed.
Bad performances.
Yeah. Anyway, well, PlayStation Showcase. Well, I don't know. We'll leave it there. We're moving into Showcase season. We've got Game Awards. Not Game Awards. Excuse me. Summer Game Fest in a week and a half as we're recording this, and then exactly 2 weeks from today, we have Xbox's Showcase, which I'm proud to announce I will be in the room for. I was invited to be there. I will be live in LA. I've already talked to some of the guys. All of you watch that I'm going to catch up with. Should be a really good time. Figure out how we're going to cover it. Go ahead.
Can I just parse what you said really quick, which was, I'm really happy to announce that I'll be in the room for that. And then your next sentence was, I was invited. So
I was invited.
I'll be in the room. And then also just to be clear,
I'm not sneaking in.
It's not that guy's awards on stage.
Hey, I'm not above sneaking into the showcase. I'll be honest. I mean, I'll do it. I basically snuck into Bethesda's 2 years ago or 3 years ago. So
we'll just see him like climb out
of you have to worry about whether they invited or not. You know?
I was invited, clear. But no, that'll be a good time. And I guess I would ask you guys at this point, I mean, what are your expectations? We've got, those are the two big showcases we have coming up, Summer Games Fest and Xbox. So looking at PlayStation.
Summer Game Fest will be a Jeff Keighley show, so that will
be a Keighley show for sure.
Is that one before the Xbox show? Or
it is June 8th. It's a Thursday.
You're going to both?
I am not going to June 8th. No.
Okay.
I expect the Xbox show to be great. I think last year's show was great. I think their problems are not their shows. They're pretty good at that. They've got showmanship.
I was going to say, I think their last 2 years have been great.
Yeah. So I expect their show to be very good, and I have more concerns about delivery of the content they show at that show.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. Yeah. It's true. Phil was on when he was on Xcast last week. He said they do have some new announcements, a couple new announcements, I guess, from first party perspective. And of course, there's a lot of assumptions that the big IPs that they announced 2-3 years ago, we'll see, right? The Avoweds.
Indiana Jones.
I don't know. You think we see Indiana Jones? Teaser, maybe?
I mean, it should go with the movie. Yeah.
With the movie. Yeah. Teaser. Yeah, so I think, it goes without saying, right? I think the expectations for Xbox to showcase are pretty similar to what PlayStation's. I think there's fans that want to see what all these studios Xbox are working on outside of Forza, which we know is a given quantity. And I think they came out this week, right? They already showed the cover art for it and said, hey, you're going to see some of this June 11th, but we're showing the majority of it on June 13th. I think that's smart. Let people know, Forza's going to be there, but really it's being shown as from Forza, from turn 10, following the show, not during the show. So set that expectation, because I think they get criticized often for that, right? That they show the same
weird.
IP.
They kicked Starfield and Forza out of their show and gave them their own directs.
You know why?
Well, Forza has a monthly live stream they do.
Okay.
It's so they said they're going to show the whole single player experience for Forza during that June 13th, like 2 days later. But yeah, Starfield is a full half an hour after the show. So it's a 2-hour show. It's an hour and a half for game showcase, and then it's 30 minutes for Starfield. So it's 2 hours.
So I get why Forza is not going to be there, because I've heard Phil Spencer give an interview, this was years ago, where he said that every time they show Forza, they get just people, the two types of reactions. One where they go, well, it's Forza, so it doesn't count. Like you had no games. Well, we showed Forza. No, Forza doesn't count as a game. What else you got, right? And so he feels like that's a lose-lose situation. Or they get people who just like don't care about it. The audience is so specific that they have to break it off and do their own thing. So
Gears,
I get why
Forza,
that's
and
fun.
Halo.
Yep. Here's Forza and Halo, but I think Forza has a special because people generally care about people who watch that show care about Halo and Gears a lot, but they apparently don't care about
Gears. That's one of my
This
hopes.
is a
I hope we see
conversation I have
something
with
Gears
people where
related.
they're like,
interesting.
Xbox was one of the leading publishers. I was like, I'm not trying to fight you on their games have been successful in certain ways, but Flight Simulator and Forza are never going to engender the kind of emotional passion as a character-based action-adventure game. It's just not the way that
they should.
media works. You can argue for whatever you want. You're arguing against the human experience. That's
But
just
the
the
human
nature of
experience of
characters and
Flight
plot.
Simulator, if you played Flight Simulator, I mean, that is if you don't feel anything playing that game, I don't know if you might be more sociopathic than me, and I don't even like cats. I look at dogs and feel nothing. Like a whole new level.
I don't mind Flight Simulator, and I love Forza Horizon, but they're not games that have the level of passion of a well-told story. That's just not the way they work.
Yeah.
Well,
I would agree with that, and I'm a Forza guy. I mean, he's arguing it from a single perspective, right?
well, yeah, he's arguing from
There's no
the things he
emotional
cares about.
attachment to the characters.
There is.
Characters.
Yeah, but you can still have emotional attachment to something without there being characters.
Of
And
course.
I think seeing the world that we live in from a bird's eye view of Flight Simulator is absolutely an emotional
It's
experience.
incredible.
Our reviewer at IGN was an Air Force pilot who got to fly and land at the base that he served at that would just happen to be in the game because they scanned in the whole world. And I would argue that's intensely emotional. It just, it depends. For me, playing Flight Simulator, I think that is that's a acclaimed game. That they should get due credit for that. Forza, I understand because it's annualized and all that stuff, but Flight Simulator, I will fight for. I think that game's awesome.
Fight for. I don't think you need to fight for it. It's okay. It's doing fine.
Well, it gets hand waved. I feel like it shouldn't get hand waved. It's a very good game. It's like,
I actually respect it more as a technical project outside of the game, but what they accomplish with the game is fascinating. Let's get caught up on Super Chats. These have been sitting a while as we were going through the debate and over the rest of PlayStation. So I'll start here. Dan, you're on deck.
Travis is here. We'll have a couple emoji chats. I've seen them. Stacy,
smiley
thank you for the $2.
face with an open mouth showing teeth.
That's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, you got to
you have
pace
a couple-
yourself there, Travis. I'm sure Stacy has more.
Yeah, we have a
very
couple
well. Also
journeys coming. Stacy,
Okay,
thank
well.
you. Book of Dark, I'm not sure what we're going for here.
All right. What is the difference between felony murder and depraved indifference murder? I have no
Statutory
idea.
name?
All right.
Which video game are we playing this in?
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Is this about marathon again?
Probably.
Thank you, Book of Dark. Random name in the
a
house.
new gameplay mechanic. This might be a bad sign.
Oh my goodness. Glad to be watching live. I don't think the PlayStation showcase was bad. It was expectations that hurt a lot of people. Metal Gear was my highlight. That was fun.
Yeah, I think it's kind of sad Metal Gear leaked, right? We all knew it was coming, but yeah, I think Metal Gear coming back is obviously big news for a lot of people. So
I
cool.
just don't trust Konami, but yeah.
Yep. Yeah. By the way, did you see Jeff Keighley going at them about
Was he protecting
pretty
Kojima?
much standing up for his brother, his man, Kojima?
Is really adopted by Hideo Kojima at this point?
I think he wants to be at this point. I don't know.
So weird.
Random. Thank you, brother. Siddharth back in the house.
Siddharth, where are our dog games? I'm sorry. I'm tired of calling every mammal in Elden Ring a dog.
Well,
They
you
just
got a
released
dog
one.
game this week,
Yeah.
Gollum. I hear that game plays like a dog.
Not what I was talking about. But all right.
Oh, I get it. You're okay. Not using an adjective, the noun. Got it.
The screenshots for that just look so bad.
Videos do too. And
Yeah.
it's not great looking.
When
I
I
think
see a
dogs are always
dog,
looked at as the companions, right? I mean, that's what
Yeah, when
Fallout
I
4
see-
really approached.
Doesn't
Well,
Final
Fable
Fantasy
2?
16 have a dog as one of the quote unquote?
Yep, they showed it this week. Yep.
And then they
When I
had
Great.
what is it? Isn't it that there's DLC for the Golem game to get the precious emotes?
Yep.
You get 5 emotes for $3. I tweeted about it. It made me extremely offended to know that.
Wow.
You
Well,
buy 'em,
Yeah,
though?
I mean, the precious edition of the game is the $10 deluxe edition that Sony likes to have out there.
Yeah.
And then they just separately sold the various components of it.
Yep.
So is there
Wow.
going to be a DLC that makes Gollum not look like a shaved orangutan? Or
He always looks like
The
that.
graphics are okay, and if you haven't played the game, you have to lighten up.
Okay, but it's a single player game with emotes. Explain that to me.
Well, emote is just the shorthand for get him to do something. You hit the down button on the D-pad. and
Well, what's
he
the
does
but why
purpose
would
of
I
that?
care? what
Yeah,
he
why would you
does?
care? The whole
Why
point
do
is
you care when it's
others.
online? I mean, you're not experiencing it from another person's perspective as you do it online.
But they do it to you, and you can use emotes to communicate something.
You're asking me why would you ever use an emote, and I can't answer that question in any environment. so.
But I don't think. Okay, so then in that case, I think you're obviously not equipped to understand just how dumb it is that an emote exists in a single player game. It's kind of unprecedented.
Well,
can't
I
think of
bought the
anything
Precious
does it.
edition because they put their lore codex in that edition, which is
Ooh,
probably
God.
That's insane.
You spent $70, Hoeg.
on Gollum.
Wow. Just remember that when you super chat Hoeg, this is how he's spending his ill-gotten gains.
I don't know why they're ill-gotten,
They're
but I have
ill-gotten.
to say,
That's a way better
Okay.
joke than where I was going with that. So I'm glad you.
All right, Shoosh in the house.
Well, hold on for 1 second. You have to pay for the lore codex?
yes, there's a lore codex that is part of
Like,
their
do you mean
super
the-
edition.
All right.
I love
All
how
right,
Ains has
Shoosh.
got his hat down like he's about to send Pikachu out to go fight someone.
Oh,
Can't do it.
Beautiful.
Can't do it.
can't anymore. All right. Shoes for the €5. Dan be like, Jim Ryan need to keep his cat furry fetish away from me. That is true. I'm not sure he has one.
You don't remember the joke about Jim Ryan, right? Like in the communication he put out, he talked about his cats, and people were like, "Why are you talking
Yeah,
about your
that
cats?"
email.
Oh, okay.
That
Yeah.
email. Yeah, that was super weird.
Super weird.
Strange dude, man.
Mm.
Thank you, Shoosh. Gecko in the house.
Gecko, Travis equating cats to dogs is as bad of a take as proclaiming Resident Evil 6 is better than Resident Evil Village.
So
Well,
according to Hoeg,
Travis
it's a
is
great
wrong
take.
and I'm right. So
Yes.
No, they're the same. They're basically the same. Like you guys are
I like
totally
that.
fair.
Travis is wrong and I'm right. Travis goes, no.
No. Look, I get that they're actually not the same, but to me, you guys are all splitting hairs. They're mammals. They don't do anything. They don't have jobs. I can't talk to them. They're the same. I don't care.
they just have wildly different energy, Travis. I don't know what
That's
to tell you.
okay. So do people who are into sports bars, but I don't want to hang out with any of them either.
Mm.
And we almost got through an episode without mentioning Resident Evil 6, but we didn't. Thank you, Gecko. Appreciate you. I'm going to jump over this one for now. We'll come back to it. Siddharth had another super chat.
All right. Maze is firing off the rupees today. All right. It's kind of funny because to me, Metal Gear Solid was that.
Are we calling it
Triangle?
Delta? Are we
I
calling
would
it
call it
triangle? What are we
triangle.
calling this thing?
I think it's a Delta, yeah.
That's fine. It's
I
called
think that might
Triangle.
be a mistake on. Remember, sometimes emotes get changed.
Oh, yeah, I don't
it's
know where
literally-
the chat
The
is.
remake is literally called Metal Gear Solid Triangle.
Yeah,
which
there's a
might be
triangle.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's on the packaging, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
It seemed to be more shaky. A more shaky reboot announcement than Marathon. Yeah, I mean,
Well, I agree that they don't say who the heck is making it, and they don't do anything but show a CGI trailer of Snake Eater and play the song. But I mean, I think Metal Gear Solid Delta we can anticipate is going to be Metal Gear Solid 3, probably a little bit shinier.
Yeah, we'll see.
But Delta
To be determined. You're still stuck on the Delta thing.
triangle, but it's 4 alpha, beta, gamma, delta. I don't understand
No,
that at all.
No, a triangle is Delta, and it has 3 sides, and Delta means change.
mm.
So Metal Gear Solid change.
Well, I suspect they'll tell us it's Metal Gear Solid Delta, but I don't know for
I guess
sure.
I guess I was too concerned with where it was in the Greek alphabet.
Yeah, it's okay. We're moving on because Siddharth is still throwing rupees at us.
Throwing the rupees. If Marathon can't be extraction shooter, then Final Fantasy 16 can have Devil May Cry style.
I would like to
Hoeg
defend
would
Hoeg.
agree with
I'd
you
like to
100%.
Just to be clear,
I would
this
like
is
to defend
entirely
Hoeg.
mine.
I want to defend Hoeg on this one. I think Hoeg has been entirely consistent with his very dumb beliefs.
Thank you, Travis. I appreciate that sterling defense.
You're welcome. I did. I learned from Ian here. He taught me how to be a defense lawyer. He was like,
Sidar, thank you so much. Appreciate you. And let's see, we got Fat Boy Horror in the house.
Yeah, Fat Boy with the £5, 8 billion for a company to tell you your games aren't good. That's
Well, I mean,
three
it's better than to
people,
not be told.
yeah.
3 people sleeping in a single bed and creating nose bubbles with their snores.
So it's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I guess so. Charlie in the Chocolate Factory with sleep apnea, I think is the
There you
take
go.
they're going for there.
Man, screw
I like
Grandpa Joe.
Fat Boy, thank you, brother. Hope you're doing well.
Charlie the Chocolate Factory reference.
Google Man gave us a super sticker saying GG's.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
€2.
Appreciate
Thank you, Google. I see you with that left hand, Hoeg.
I'm trying.
I know. It's getting up there.
Yeah.
Hey,
All right.
I'm left-handed. That counts.
All right, Travis, you're on deck, sir. You've got 3 stories to tell.
Whoa, really?
3 stories to tell. There you go.
Should've been
All right.
working
Okay, so cats and dogs are gambling in
they're
a
gaming. Yeah.
they're gaming, but the dice makes me think maybe it's gambling. Oh no, wait, they're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, they're playing a Dungeons and Dragons video game
Oh, jeez.
that they love, but then a fire broke out and they had to get the fire extinguisher. And then an
Satan?
evil wizard. Cat. Oh, this is
Yeah, but I
a
think it's a
movie.
movie.
It's a movie. Okay, so cats and dogs. There's a dragon, a fire. All dogs go to heaven. Is that it? No.
Is there a wizard in that?
You started with cat and
There's
dog, and then
magic.
got to
I think
all dogs go to heaven.
Here's my theory. Here's my theory for that. Wizards might be a placeholder for God. Because there's no God emoji, right? So they're like, all right, old man with weird could work.
Okay, so that's hell and heaven at the end, you think?
Yeah, hell in heaven, maybe. I'm not sure. Okay, so anyway, I'm gonna say a pet's die in a fire while playing games, and then a wizard films it. Anyway, next story.
Chris, thank you for the super chat. Stacy's got 2 for you.
Okay, Travis forgot to wake up for his alarm, and then when he got on the show, he was tired and started talking about animals and how much he hates them, games, and art.
Specifically cats and dogs.
It's me. It's me. It's a story of Travis and this morning. That's that one. Like I nailed it.
Nice.
That's me. That was my line.
Nice. Stacy, let us know if that was a Travis based story there. And while he reads the next one.
Okay. Thing blank. Don't give the answer away, chat. Okay. So this is the summer. Looks like all summer activities. You're in the sun. You're doing gymnastics. You're eating watermelons. Hanging out by the pool, and then also maybe global warming is occurring. This might be a political message. While you're having fun during the summer, the world is suffering. That's what I choose to take away from this.
I would say
Fair.
Memorial Day.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'd say Memorial Day.
Oh, Memorial Day. Yeah, tomorrow. It's gonna be a good one.
Hoeg deciphers these. Travis takes them in a whole new direction. I like that.
Okay, but
a message
yeah.
about global warming. Memorial Day.
I think it was I think the thing we're memorializing is our planet's sustainable ability to
Destruction.
sustain life. You know what I mean?
Perfect. Thank you, everyone, for the generosity. Appreciate you. Well, guys, so we've got next week will be a big week for us because we've got no, it's not next week. I was thinking Summer Games Fest was this Thursday. It's the following Thursday. But anyway, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. I think big shout out to everyone who joined us today for the debate and the conversation. Ian, thank you for swinging by. We hit over, I think, 450 people concurrent today, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for the support. It's good to be back to talking games. As much fun as I had with trivia last week, and trivia I can't speak today. Travis crushing us with his questions last week. It is good to be back talking games with
Trivia guy
guys
Travis.
here. Trivia guy Travis.
That was fun. I know we didn't really get to reflect on it too much because we ended the show without any.
Yeah, we'll be a little better organized in our structure
Yeah.
next time.
I'm
So
sorry,
apologies
man.
on that.
I effed that up.
No, it's all good. I think people enjoyed it. People did call out the same thing that we said, but yeah, we'll have another episode of that here in the future, and we'll structure it a little better next time. I promise. By the way, Dan's hosting next time, so that'll be hilarious in its own right.
Yeah.
Listen, you think it's? I've got 10 questions already written down.
He's already ready.
Listen, I'm going to start from unlike Travis, where he got them all like the night before. I'm going to progressively
Resident Evil 6 plot questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're answerable.
So you've got 3.
Yeah. No.
Well, all mine were answerable. One of mine was how to make a pickaxe in Minecraft. That's like the easiest question ever.
No.
Which you gave the wrong answer for, sir. Thank you.
I read the wrong answer, but nobody wrote sticks and iron ingots. That was the problem, really.
But next week, Travis and I can finally talk about Diablo. So from the season gaming side, like I said, reviews go up Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific. We're going to have a video and written review. And then I also have videos going live Wednesday and Thursday. So a lot of content coming this week on Diablo. Going to be excited to talk about that. We have a big write-up tomorrow, too, coming from Alex, who is doing continues to do our Tears of the Kingdom coverage. So he's got a write-up coming that'll go live tomorrow on that. You can check that out. And then, like we said, we'll talk about our plans more thoroughly next week for the showcase with Xbox, because obviously I won't be here when that occurs on that Sunday. And it's directly after we would normally kind of right now be wrapping up the show. So we'll figure that out. We'll talk about it next week and tell you what our plans are for that. But Ian, I'm going to call on you first, sir. Thanks for swinging by today. I appreciate you reaching out and joining us and, joining the debate to team up on Travis, which Dan and I, we shared some popcorn out of our Charger popcorn bucket and had a good laugh about it. But thanks for coming by. Why don't you tell people where they can have you? Wow. Where they can find you.
I'm at Runkle of the Bailey or Roll of Law, both primarily on YouTube, but also on some other platforms. But YouTube is the main place. So Runkle of the Bailey or Roll of Law, depending on whether you want.
Question?
Yeah.
Is Runkle of the Bailey a reference to Ace Attorney?
No, it's a reference to Rumpole of the Bailey.
Huh?
Rumpole of the Bailey?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So Ace Attorney might reference that as well.
I think they do, yeah.
So, yeah, that's the background on that is basically a judge at one point got confused hearing my name and then went on a 30-minute thing about how I had a great name for the law. And then once I had to correct him as to what my name actually was, he never forgave me for not being named Rumpole. So I kind of had to lean into it for the channel reference.
That's pretty funny.
Sorry, just typing in the chat. Travis, what you got going on this week, man?
Well, I'll be watching episodes of Rumpole of the Bailey, a show that I think I've seen on television when I was a kid, but I think that show must have ended early 90s, right? So it was probably before I was born or close to when I was born.
Oh boy.
Sorry, it's an old British show for those who don't know. I barely know what it's about. I've got Diablo. I can talk about the many hours I put into that game. I'm going to have some previews. Can I talk about either of those previews? Oh yeah, I can talk about one of them. I'm going to have a preview up on June 1st or May 30th or something, somewhere soon. Yeah, somewhere soon. That for Telltale's next game, Telltale's Return, The Expanse.
Excellent.
I played the first episode and I wrote about it and did a video.
I've never been jealous of Travis before. This is a weird feeling.
I hung out with their team and got to hear about their really exciting return to making video games. That it's just one of those things where you're in the room with the people and you can feel they're all excited that they made it to that point because they got so close to not, being a studio, obviously, the stuff that they went through. So
yeah,
it was cool. And I think that's going to be up on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Great. I'm excited about that, man.
Yeah, pretty cool. I've got some other stuff I can't talk about that's going to be going live after Skulls and then the Skulls conference, and then the Diablo 4 review goes live at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, like Ain said. And also for Street Fighter fans, I did not review Street Fighter 6, but my good friend Mitchell Saltzman, who's far more qualified to do so, did review it, and his review will be live on Tuesday at midnight. So 9 hours before my Diablo review destroys his review in terms of viewers, right? Yeah.
Remember to link to the Season Gaming review in your IGN review. Thank you in advance.
Already done, buddy.
Appreciate it. Hoeg, anything you want to shout out?
Well, a couple of things actually, since Travis just reminded me of it by talking about Telltale. One of the other games I'm playing this week was a game I didn't even know was being developed or that it released, called Star Trek Resurgence, which is a game by a company called Dramatic Labs in the Telltale format. I believe it's a company built off of old Telltale talent, and it's very much a Telltale game in the Star Trek The Next Generation kind of time frame, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. So I did want to mention that. In terms of my own content, Lawyers and Dragons, where you can see Ian Runkle of the Bailey, as well as myself, has returned as of yesterday morning, and we will be on every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. On my channel, HoegLaw. So if you like to see lawyers playing Dungeons and Dragons, that's the place to go. I really think it's the only place to go. But come check it out with us. And we have a really, really great time. And season 2 kicked off really strongly yesterday, and I'm really excited about it. So come join us for that. And then who knows? We'll be doing virtual legalities and hangouts and headlines sooner rather than later. But we're still getting up to speed. We still have a little bit more rehabilitation to do. And then we'll be doing more videos as we go.
Fantastic. Yeah, great to see you guys back. Great to see you continuing to do very well, Hoeg. So it's awesome.
Hey, Ains, if I may.
Yes.
I'm going to be
of course.
on Gaming Beyond the Box tonight with Will Me and Bomber.
There you go. Call it
All
out.
those guys. So I think it's at 7 Eastern.
Okay.
Probably. So if you watch this show and watch their show, very, very different shows, but also all about gaming.
They are.
So
yeah, they are, but it's our good friends over there.
Great friends. Yep. Love those guys. So catch me tonight, probably, if I don't forget, because my brain is
I haven't seen you guest on another show in a long time.
It's been a long, long time, which is partially by design. I don't like getting involved with too much of the craziness. So
yeah,
I like those guys. Those guys are good.
They're good guys. Yeah. So that's Gaming Beyond the Box. You can find them on YouTube. And we've had some of them on ours. They've been on Bitcast many times over in the past. So
for sure.
Cool. All right, guys. Thank you. Appreciate the long-winded marathon debate. I didn't realize that you guys a marathon debate. I didn't realize you were that passionate about marathon. It's good to know for future. I suppose.
Marathon is awesome, by the way.
Marathon is.
I did play it, but I didn't get into it at the time. I played it when they re-released it. You know what I mean? In the Xbox Live Arcade, whenever that was.
Aleph 1, you can get it. I think right now you can get it for free for all 3 games. If you dig around, I don't know if there's a legal way to still play other than like buying an ancient machine to play Pathways into Darkness. But if you can figure out a way, it's also a great game. Both of them were ahead of their time. Both of them were like Marathon was Doom, but you could look up, which was insane for the time. Pathways into Darkness, great game, still holds up, but you have to put up with some very primitive graphics. They're worth playing.
Okay.
I bet you those games will be in Marathon in some form.
In some form, yeah, you'll be able to access them. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yep.
All right, chat, you've been awesome today. Mods Against the Tide, shout out to you for constantly, sharing all the links and all the everything else to do with both channels and all of our social media accounts. It's very appreciated. I know that just takes a lot continually trying to do that. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for checking us out. As always, we will see you next week, same time, same place. Until then, have a good week of gaming. And Diablo 4 releases this week. You have no idea how excited I am. All right. We'll talk about it next week. Peace.